The recording has started.
This is Toasted with Revolution News and Information. It is 5/15/2017. It's currently 5:04 Pacific, 7:04 Central. I'd like to pass the floor over to anyone that would like it first.
Okay, this is Edward Johnston of Oregon Trackers. Would like to thank you for joining us. This is an educational channel, so that way we know what's lawful and what's legal. And without proper education, we don't know the separation of lawful and illegal, or including immigration, where most people don't get that point. And this is where people are upset with Donald Trump right now, because people are going off on different channels with Donald Trump, but they don't know the circumstances or the fact. Donald Trump is a corporation man. Everybody knows that point. Go ahead.
All participants are muted.
Well, okay. All right. So, but Donald Trump is a corporation man. Most of us know that. We all know the circumstances of our elected and public officials compared to lawful and legal. If you don't know the difference of lawful and legal compared to the administrative rules, you need to learn this structure. If you don't know it, you cannot blame somebody else for your ignorance. Yes, it takes a point where we get knowledge and there's certain things that we don't get, but there takes a point where impatience and understanding. And I have to go back to a reference. You know, I have to go back to a reference of somebody who was in my life, 15 years ago. And that's the point, that we sit there and we judge without knowing the concept or the understanding of one another. And I don't like to use the word understanding because I stand underneath no one, nor does Dave or anybody else on the show, because when you go to court, you don't understand. You don't stand underneath a judge, because a judge is the Vatican. He works for the foreign court situation. He does not work for we the people. And that's the point, that you guys have got to realize the separation of church and state. Most people don't get the separation of church and state. A lot of people now, what's going on over in the Midwest and the East Coast is everybody's upset. They're tearing down monuments dealing with, called the British flag, the British structure. Oh, you guys call most of that called Confederate flag. The Confederate flag and all that structure, if you do real history, that's the whole point, is doing real history. Confederate flag was part of the British government, not part of we the people. People would say, excuse you, Ed, you're missing a point here, that affects all of us because we're the South. Well, no, it does not, because you're flying a flag that is under British rule. Now, that term that was incorporated, and I'll tell you this, is what's called civil rights, where people don't comprehend that. 1871, all of a sudden we got civil rights after the 13th and 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Both were passed, both were ratified, and we asked people to prove us wrong, and nobody has done that to this date. I hear conversations of these things, and so does Dave, but nobody's come out and proven anything to me and Dave. Now, Dave has an interesting filing going on. I'm getting ready to start my new one this week. And that is dealing with Kate Brown, the governor. I'm getting ready to rip a part of the structure of the state, because I have no compassion, I have no emotions, I don't have bloodline. My children were killed. I don't have the fantasy of knowing what it's like to have compassion. I thought I had that once in a relationship, but I realized that relationship was a fantasy in my own mind, not a reality. That was 15 years ago. We would be celebrating our 18th anniversary coming up, but, it's like women. They'll jump to the next bed mandatorily. They don't give a shit about men and women. You know, when I see a woman, I have not met one who would not do that at this point of date. And if I do, maybe I would apologize to the woman in that fashion, but I have not seen it. And so when we're dealing with relationships, that we have to keep that too close to our breast to ourselves, because if we don't have faith in her, she has no faith in us. And I'm speaking because I'm not in a relationship. I haven't been in a relationship in 15 years. I would not know. Okay, but for those who are in a relationship, it is working and understanding, compassionately understand, and working with the woman as the man works with the woman. I was on the phone for several hours today with different people, and we were arguing or having conversation or difference of opinion, including with the Constitution that gives men and women equal rights. And everybody goes, oh, well, a woman got pregnant, she shouldn't have this, she shouldn't have that, she should do this, and she should do that. Folks, let me explain bluntly. If you want the Constitution, the woman is equal. There is no racism, none of this fantasy about the Bible bullshit. Either she has rights as equal as you, and if you don't comprehend that fact, we do know women play mental games on us. That's the standard procedure that women do. Nobody can argue those points of view. But if you don't have the understanding or comprehension of what you're dealing with today in those type of relationships, these are the problems that we have a conflict. You know, it's like people who want to go out and vote. Does your vote really matter? Everybody's arguing about Hillary Clinton should be president. She's one of the biggest cocaine runners in dealing with her husband. And nobody gets that point. Type in Clinton Chronicles. If you don't know the truth of what's really going on and you run around with emotions, and men do this sometimes too, compared to logic reality, we get lost. You know, I'm a very staunch believer that children should not watch TV or anything like that until they're 12 years old. Because, you know, maybe some history stuff, it depends on what the parents allow their children. Remember, parents run their children. They have lawful and legal authority over their children. You do not. The system does not. You have to respect the parent. If you do not respect the parent, then you don't respect your upbringing, you don't respect your parents, and you don't respect when you have children. This is the point that we get lost on these things, that we forget communication, mainly with men and women. They forget communication between one another. This is the point that we lose these things. We don't see the future because we're willing to predict the future, or we want to go by the damn Bible. Oh, we have to relive history. The history already said this, so we're reliving history. When are men and women going to get their head out of their butt and say we don't have to relive history? When are we going to sit there that we educate ourselves and our children so we don't starve, we grow food, we collect rainwater, we make sure that the food is there, so if the grocery store is not there tomorrow, and you can't go to the grocery store, and I cannot go hunting and fishing on the other point, if I don't have food on my land, how am I supposed to survive? How are you supposed to survive? These are things that we have to realistically look at the point of view compared to what we're fantasily taught about. Most of you can agree with this. Some of you go, oh shit, man, he's just speaking out. We don't know what's going on. If you do not pass your bloodline down, that's where I keep going on. You know, I don't believe in the Bible. And I had a lengthy conversation with somebody today about the Bible. And we had somewhat of a difference of opinion, but at some points in the conversation, the circumstances were, well, Ed, you got a point there. And I said, well, okay, I have a point here. But how are we supposed to make sure that your bloodline knows the truth? If you do not sit there and educate your bloodline on facts, not democracy, I'm talking if you got paper in your hand, or you take that child out, or young kid, and you go out and you sniff the dirt. You go out and learn how to track a deer, and you watch the print in the deer when the deer walked by it. You can tell if it's powdery or if it's hard. You get to know what the circumstances are. If you don't know those circumstances, how are you supposed to have freedom? Freedom is taught. And if you don't know what freedom is, if you don't educate yourself on freedom, you have no rights. This is where me and Dave are going through the points we're going through. I'm getting ready to do another filing. I'm getting ready to do on the governor of Oregon. Dave's doing that in his structure. But the point being is, if you do not stand up for your rights and your bloodline, okay, I don't care if you're an immigrant that came in this country, let's say illegally. Yes, I do. If you're illegally, ship your ass out. All right? If you come into this country legally under the structure of the Constitution and you agree to the constitutional contract, you cannot sit there and say, oh, well, I have Cinco de Mayo Day and all this other crap that is British foreign, not American. Either you're an American or not. There is no walking down the middle of the road in this issue. It's not an issue of fantasy. Okay, some will say, oh, well, Ed, come on, we know that we've had unicorns that were born. Well, all right, so there's been a freak of nature in some things, but then the other point is we know the lawful and legal difference. How do you know the difference? That is the point that you have to determine that to the education of your child. If you do not sit there and educate yourself and your child, and you let the state educate your child that is not there for personal financial, oh, wait a minute, they are for personal financial gain. They don't have compassion. They don't love you. They don't love your children. They can give a damn about you or your children. As soon as you wake up and admit that elected and public servants, your police department, your elected officials, they don't love you. Wake up, dumbass. They don't care about you. Without you, they have no income. It's like the mayor and city council of the city that you're in. I've been through that where they wanted to put me when I was elected official. I was supposed to go through a special class to learn democracy. I refused. They panicked, and that's when I recalled the school board and stuff that lost my family. The woman had no faith. Like most of women, you know, either they have faith in you or you don't, but if they do, you have to prove the faith to the woman. If you don't have faith, then that is the point. I don't know who that number is. If you don't have faith in those circumstances, sorry for the noise, I got an incoming call. But, I mean, the bottom line comes down, if you don't have faith in yourself, and if you don't have faith to protect that of your bloodline and pass it down to your children, what future do you have when it comes down to it? That is the major point that we have to look at through these circumstances, if that makes sense. So, anyhow, I'm going to let Dave take over. He had a couple things he wanted to get into tonight. I will come back, but I want you to think about one major point here. If you don't protect your bloodline, what future do your children have? What future do you have? If you don't collect the rainwater, teach them how to grow food. Let's say the world ends tomorrow, and let's say you have a little chunk of an area on the planet of the earth that you collect rainwater and grow food. If you don't know how to can and that type of stuff to protect your bloodline, how are you supposed to survive? We know on the West Coast here, not only Fukushima is leaking out like crazy, but Hanford in the state of Washington has been proven that has been leaking for 30 years, and it's almost reached the Columbia River. Once it hits the Columbia River, our fish is destroyed in the river system. No food. Wake up. You've been watching these things on the internet and stuff for years, where food washes up. The beaches are washing up with seals and whales and all this stuff. Don't listen to propaganda. Remember, that is us poisoning. And don't get into this stuff of going, oh, well, the ice is melting. We get that point. The ice is melting. What? I don't know, because they're doing logging. When they did logging, they changed the environment. Oh, on the West Coast here, we do logging, and we say that we can grow trees every day, and this is part of our economy. Well, when you go out to the economy, you don't have the wild mushrooms, you don't have the wild ferns, you don't have real food that takes away, what is that called? Cancer. These guys spend billions of dollars so that way they can guarantee employment. And your elected and public officials go by employment. They don't care about you, they don't love about you, because if there's no employment for the taxes that they call rolling in, even though that's taxes and tax fraud, and I expect Dave to read that and bring that new case in here pretty shortly. But see, this is the point that we have to wake up to the reality. Everybody says, oh, let's go pray to God. Oh, the neighbors are going to take care of one another. Bullshit. Stop lying. Because the minute you stop lying, because, see, you're not taking care of your neighbors don't love you, they're not helping you out. And then when you are blessed and you have some that are actually helping you and you're working with each other, once it used to be like that in the 70s and 60s and 50s, you know, it's going back into opening the mind up. If we don't protect our children or food resources in our life, we have nothing. Remember, life matters to some people. So, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you for a few minutes. Well, before you may, I would like to say Dave and I are not attorneys. We are not part of the system, per se. All right? We are educated by what we learn, and we're bringing to you for your knowledge. And you have to be responsible in your knowledge. So when you do affidavits and this stuff, you can't blame somebody else for your writing. The only thing you could blame is that maybe you didn't understand or comprehend what the truth was at the time. Education of one or the other is a beautiful thing. Without that, there's no future. All right, anyhow, May, go ahead, and I'll pass the floor to Dave.
Yes, one point I'd like to make about the Bible is any Bible that you pick up, it's small and compact and fits in your hand. Now the real Bible is huge. It doesn't fit in your hand. You cannot reference the big Bible versus the small Bible. If you can, then please go do it. Because I want to know what's been taken out. Now the only reason why my friend here says what he says about the Bible, because it's been modified, altered, things have been added and taken away. So I'll just put that for food for thought, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave. I yield.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining Ed and I and our hosts on tonight's call. Some of this may sound a bit familiar to you. However, I think a lot of you have not yet comprehended the ruling of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And this week I got a Dear John letter from a Patricia A. Gonzalez, Operation 1 Manager of the Internal Revenue Service, Fresno, California. And so in rebutting her crap, as she's trying to get me to pay forward on a counterfeited debt, I have written the following letter, and I've already posted this on our web pages, so if you haven't had a chance to go there and read this, I'm going to read this to you, because this is really a educational moment for anyone competent enough to comprehend what people talk about when they address a letter to the Internal Revenue Service. So it begins, Dear Ms. Gonzalez, thank you for yet another attempt at mail fraud and attempted extortion of my property. I cannot accept any of your communications, whereas you are an unregistered foreign agent. Your IRS is a division of the IMF, correct? Since 2005, the IRS have failed to produce any law that requires payment of an income tax. Reference U.S. versus Lloyd R. Long, Federal District Court, Tennessee, case number CR 1-9391, equal, look it up and read the decision of the jury. I would remind you that this is the United States of America, the Republic, and not the de facto United States of America, DBA, a federal corporation, a democracy acting in fraud upon the world, which only applies to the federal zones, 1, Washington, D.C., 2, New York City, New York, and 3, the holding territories belonging to the United States thereof. In this republic, the 1787 Constitution of the United States and treaties written are the supreme law of the land, notwithstanding thereof. The one Supreme Court is the highest court in this land, and no law, statute, codification can be written in violation of their rulings and this Constitution and treaties written thereof. The IRS, hold on a second here, I've got to move the page up. The IRS code is fraud in the inducement, whereas it intentionally ignores some 60 key case rulings of this court, of which I have informed the IRS on many occasions only to be ignored without explanation thereof. I have called your offices on many occasions only to be hung up on when asked this question: what law requires me to pay an income tax? So far, not one lawful response to my letters and my faxes to your offices have been received by me, whereas I am not required by law to file or pay it. Thus, your agency counterfeited a 1040 debt and filed fraudulent tax liens. Your actions at all taken against me following 2 major court decisions, 1993 U.S. versus Lloyd R. Long and 2005 Schultz versus IRS, Second Circuit Court of Appeals, New York City, New York. Would you care to explain your stupidity? Under 44 U.S.C. 3512 Public Protection, did you send to your office, who counterfeited this 1040 debt, lawful notice you are not required to fill out the paperwork? So you did these unlawful acts of counterfeiting debt with the intent to embezzle funds from banking accounts and Social Security accounts to profiteer from your corporate office, correct? At these losses in court, did or did not the DOJ, that's the Department of Justice, inform your offices of these jury verdicts? Prove they did. Place them in the law and statutes of the IRS Code and the U.S. Code. Where are your 1040X forms instead of 1040s? Why are you not providing Form 515 to all bloodline Americans to take them off the fraudulent tax rolls? Your agency intentionally hiding the truth from the general population to cause grand theft, robbery, and false arrest. You jackasses. Of course, I guess they can't read the emphasis. Why do your officers' agencies refuse to look up the authority of the Secretary under 6331A? I am not a government employee. Do you not counterfeit your notice of levy and lien starting with 6331B? Are you not a collection agency? Daily violating Title V and Title 42, 408, A8 thereof. Mail fraud, identity theft, counterfeiting, bullying, inland piracy, personage. The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has issued a stunning ruling admitting that the U.S. and the federal courts have been systematically misapplying the income tax as a non-appropriated direct tax for decades. The clear implication is that literally trillions of dollars have been improperly taken from their rightful owners. Understand that. Comprehend this, people. Clearly implicating it is that literally trillions of dollars have been improperly taken from their rightful owners. The further application is that hundreds of men and women, perhaps even thousands, have been victims of legal harassment and indemnification, properly seized, or property seizures, character assassination, even imprisonment, all based on a fraud. At the same time, it is clear that the explosive and some would say republic eroded. Okay, I don't understand why they would put republic eroded, but anyway, growth of the federal government over the same period of time has been financed by this same scheme. So Congress is involved, and so is the office of president, in a fraud scheme to finance government growth. The paradigm-shattered admission by the panel of the Circuit Court, which has since been replicated, I have trouble with my eyes sometimes, in other circuits as well, came in a ruling reported as Parker versus Commer, 724 F2D 469. Alton Parker, an otherwise unremarkable Fifth Amendment tax protester, has appealed a tax court decision finding him liable for taxes on conceding taxable activity. In the appeals court, Parker raised an additional argument beyond the confession motion that completing a tax form amounted to self-incrimination. Parker also squarely challenged the appellate court with the assertion that, as put by the panel, the IRS and the government in general, including the judiciary, mistakenly interpreted the 16th Amendment as allowing a direct tax on property, wages, salaries, commission, etc., without apportionment. The Circuit Court panel found itself unable to dispute Parker allegations and ultimately admitted its accuracy. The admission by the court is perhaps unsurprisingly, circumspectly, and even descriptively made. It takes the form of a complete misrepresentation of an old but still standing and widely cited ruling of the Supreme Court, declaring the High Court to have said exactly the opposite of what it actually says. Despite the awareness of the approach, however, the Circuit Court evasion of the Parker allegation constitutes a definitive admission of its accuracy under routine principles of law, as the Supreme Court put it. Indeed, as Mr. Justice Brandeis declared, speaking of a unanimous court in the Todd case, supra, which involves a deportation, since is often evidenced of the most persuasive character, 263 U.S. at 263 U.S. 153, 154. And just the last term in Hale, spur of the court recognized that failure to contest an assertion is considered evidence of acquiescence. If it would have been natural under the circumstances to object to the assertion in question, 422 U.S. at 422 U.S. 176, footnote 3. Baxter versus, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Palmigiano, 425 U.S. 308, 318, 1976. Plainly, on outright falsehoods in response to an assertion is the equivalent of silence as meant in the statement of the law by the High Court. In fact, falsehood such as that responded to by the Fifth Circuit panel simply makes clear that the Circuit Court recognized its duty to have validly objected to the assertion presented had it been able to do so, thus making it failure to do so that much more plainly admits to the assertion accuracy. It is impossible to predict how extensively the Parker Court admission of the misapplication of income tax will be called upon in legal actions for redress, sure to come from victims of what is now acknowledged to have been observed, if not criminally, behavior by government, tax agencies, and judicial officers under the aspect of law. No doubt the clamor will be very loud indeed. And the rest of this document was hacked, but the court went on to say that trillions of dollars have been improperly collected from the men and women of this nation. So if that's not a blatant admittance to tax fraud by everyone from the United States Supreme Court, because the court ruled on these things too, so the United States Supreme Court, the lower courts, Congress, the President, IRS, IMF, the Crown, the Pope, they're all guilty of tax fraud. And that is a very, very shattering letter, to say the least. The part that they admitted, or they omitted here, was the fact, and they cut this out intentionally. The IRS, in this letter that I received from them, obtained or contained what they called a voucher. However, nothing on the letter itself read voucher, nor did it read an amount of money due on that said voucher, payable to whom it didn't say, and yet I'm supposed to return that voucher to the IRS if I am making a payment. How stupid are these incompetent jackasses that work for the IRS? If somebody can enlighten me, I would love to know it. For people who are supposedly educated in law, these people have no clue what they're doing. And never have. I'll bet you 10% of them have, or at least 10% of them, don't even know what rulings of the United States Supreme Court there are that should be not found in the IRS code. And the Department of Justice, thanks to their stupidity and incompetence, any ruling of the United States Supreme Court that favors you and I, ladies and gentlemen, as the head of government of this nation is not going to be overlooked any longer. We will file the lawsuits the appropriate individuals who chose to lie to us. The prosecutors are hearsay witnesses, and the court stuck up for them. So the IRS themselves have no clue. They go around stating, oh, well, you failed to file. Oh, well, who gave you permission, Mr. Collection Agency, which you don't want to admit to, but that's what you are. You're a division of the IMF, IRS. So, you know, in your idiotic way of thinking, that what gives you superiority over the United States Supreme Court? I don't think so, and neither does anyone else who's listening to this show. So, Ed, do you have any questions on what I read to you?
I had to unmute myself.
That's fine.
No, I'm on the same path as you, and this is the point that people have got to realize, that what you and I are speaking of is fact. We are recording our words by the administrative rules of what the system wrote. We are talking your elected and public officials. And if you don't comprehend that you have servants, and you think, oh, the Bible gives us this, you are the most stupidest man or woman in the face of this earth. The Bible gives you nothing. The Bible is a written book by man. All right? It's like, you know, oh, the Ten Commandments. Well, I can agree with part of the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not cheat. Thou shalt not do certain things. But see, it's either knowing that or common sense. And that means coming down to respect of yourself. Now, what Dave is referring to in law, did you get into the Supreme Court decision that came out of the 5th District already?
Yeah, I just got through reading it.
Okay, I just got back on because I was on another line.
That's fine.
Okay, but see, you know, I mean, I'm dealing with another local issue going on through circumstances. People are waking up. But see, it's knowing how to file your claim, knowing your standing, and remember, you have servants. And until the day that you understand, and I hate to use the word to understand, comprehend the reality, because if you don't stand up for your family, you have no family. Of course, I don't even know what the family is. I don't even have bloodline. Why should I care when it comes down to it? My foolish point is that I had a woman in my life once that I believed in that I was let down. All right, but that's beside the point. The point being is where Dave's bringing this evidence to you is knowing if you're lawful or legal. Now, me and Dave wrote an instrument that Judge Scalia was murdered over. He was supposed to decide if Obama was legal or lawful in this country. We know Obama is not lawful. He's not even technically legal. He's a terrorist invader. All right? And so when people start standing up to this fact and truth, instead of running around in circles over things, All right? He brought you the point on the tax structure. Now, all these people say, oh, I'm afraid to file taxes, or I filed my taxes because I'm afraid to go to jail. You're so full of shit. I've never done that. I've had them come after me more than once. They lost. But see, when you go to, I mean, how can I say this? I used to fight for a living. I used to get paid to cause harm to men and women. I got paid to do it. Okay? And that's the same thing as, I don't know, I can't remember his name, but if you do your research, even when a Clinton Chronicle structure, there's people said, oh, I worked for Clinton and I was able to do murder to protect myself. And if you go back to the same structure, isn't that what Adolf Hitler did, where people were saying that, oh, I can kill the, what they call, whatever they want to call them. I'm not going to call them Jews. It's bullshit. They're men and women. There ain't no freaking thing about Judaism and all this other crap we get from foreign countries. We want to go through that reality. We don't live life. The Constitution says a man and a woman are equal. If you're not equal, there is no other structure. That means a woman's body is her right. And when he's bringing up with the deal in the Fifth Circuit Court dealing with taxes, if you want to claim taxes and you want to go play the game, you enter yourself into that. I don't particularly put myself in those ballpark realms to put myself in that fictitious corporation standing. Because once you do the standing, you know, you give up your rights. That's where people don't get that reality.
The IRS tax forms, Ed, are not in the inducement because they refer to I under penalty of perjury. No, because perjury is only testimony given under oath. You cannot make a statement and testify against yourself on an IRS form and then state that it is under penalty of perjury. That is the biggest lie ever told. It's another form of harassment.
Mm-hmm.
So people, if you have ever sworn under penalty of perjury, that is grounds for reconsideration of anything that has ever happened to you. Because it's fraud. You were not under sworn testimony when you were fraudulently led to believe that that's what you had to sign as. And that's exactly how these attorneys, lawyers, judges have finagled the system to put it to you, or best known as screw you over. Rape, rob, and pillage. Go ahead, Ed.
No, he's bringing up a valid point. It is rape, rob, and pillage. Because you have to comprehend that people don't get it. People sit there and they go, oh, well, I have to defend this, I have to defend this, and I have to defend that. Okay? And that's where the people don't comprehend reality. You know, that's the point, that people don't get this reality. So when it comes to, like he brought up, dealing with taxes, if you're filing your taxes, okay, now if you're elected and public servant, or if you're a government agency, or you're making income from the corporation called AKA our government, or public servants, or structure. If you are making an income, all right, so we have to do that because you're making an income, so that way you keep your mouth shut, you want your retirement. Nobody's going to disagree with that. But if you don't comprehend the fact of how to get out of the system, okay, because you can work for the system for 20, 25 years, 30 years, When you get out of it, you're claiming your rights, not privileges. That is up to you to do. If you don't do that, nobody else is going to do that. Okay? And this is the fact that we're all living with on these points of view. And you have to protect yourself and your children. If you don't do that, nobody else is going to do that. When Dave and I bring these administrative rules to you, and we bring this structure to you and these points of view, okay, you have to protect yourself, your body, your alignment. If you don't protect your body, your livelihood, you don't exist. And that is the biggest point here, folks. Because the bottom line comes down to either you love your children or you do not. It is simple. If we have no children, I can comprehend that point, because what the hell do you care about a bloodline for? Because it's all bullshit at that point, because you have nothing to pass down to your children. Okay? And that's the point that frustrates people, because they don't get that point. Why? And I've had people argue with me on things. Literally argue with me on things on these points of view. Okay? And the bottom line comes down to, what are you going to argue? I don't have the structure. It's like I'm writing a new affidavit dealing with the governor filing criminal charges. I'm indicting her. So the bottom line comes down to is that it comes to the point, if you don't know the law, you cannot claim to somebody else that you don't know the law, or you did know the law, but then again you're trying to compensate yourself out of it. All right? But remember, the law is statute, codes, and administrative rules, or constitution. There is a separation of legal and lawful. Legal is statute, codes, and administration, and like when the city tells you, oh, well, you can't do this on your land, you cannot do that on your land, and that's a crime. Who gives a city authority? You do. If you don't file criminal charges back on the city, if you don't file and go after the men and women who who trespass on your land, they don't have a right to trespass on your land, period. If you don't stand up for that point of view and file on them, fuck this, excuse my language, duck the point of where people go, excuse me, you are not to believe in God. God is not there to help you. Man is there to help you. All right? Or the Great Spirit, Mother Earth, because without the Great Spirit, without Mother, there's no life. Without woman and man, there's no life. Let's be realistic. I don't live in fantasy like some people do. I don't believe that, Mary got pregnant because, God gave her semen. Without the comprehension of that fact, it doesn't make logical sense. All right? Because you and I both know that it takes a man and a woman to have a child. That's the plants. Our plants are animals. It's all the same structure. So when he's bringing up this point dealing with, I don't know, or he knows what we're talking about, dealing with your rights on your land and your structure of having the rights of land, the rights of your taxes. Remember, they're your taxes. When you pay into the system, they are your taxes. They are not somebody else's taxes. And everybody goes, well, I'm tired of paying for all these immigration people and stuff. You're not paying for any of them. That comes out of the banking percentage. Do the research on banks and how they fund this stuff through your corporation government. When you pay taxes, it goes to the Vatican. When you pay income tax, it goes to the Vatican. When you pay property taxes, it goes to the Vatican, the bankers. Then not a damn of it goes to your roads, highways, services. It's all bullshit. They lie. All right? The whole point is, by lying, they make an income off of you. When you go to church, quit giving to the damn devil. As the Bible truly says, the root of all evil is money, not the love. You could be lied. Oh, save Caesar. Okay? But see, when it comes down to this point of view dealing with taxes and these circumstances, you have a right to claim exempt. When you claim exempt, that means you grow your food, collect rainwater, protect yourself, and you don't go on the system. If you go on the system and everybody goes, oh, and Social Security is the British government. Technically, if you go back in Social Security and Workman's Comp, there used to be two structures of our system. One was called public and one was called private. And if you go really back into 1914 when Workman's Comp was created and all this stuff, that was created off the Piracy Act. Oh, I think that goes back to the British government in the 1800s. Remember, after we stopped the war, the British government, their employees or their servants decided to become pirates, and they were rape, robbing, and pillaging people in the 1800s. That was the British government. So it's like you got to research this stuff and know real history. So when he's referring on a tax structure, this is the British government rape, robbing, and pillaging you. This is the damn King James Bible. This is the Vatican. Your Vatican runs your churches. Your Vatican runs the bank. Your Vatican runs the court system. And everybody goes, oh, we have these rights. If you don't know your rights when you go in front of these idiots that are rape, robbing, and pillaging you, what rights do you have? So you have to step back on these points of view and knowing when you go to battle how to win the war. It's like I used to fight for a living, literally. And when I went to fight, the one thing was great. Once about a long time ago, I had a woman in my life that we had an argument or something like that. I used to take it out in the ring. Okay, I mean, and that's the point, is that I took it out on somebody else for my own anguish. Yes, it made a great deal. Yes, it worked, and yes, I was happy. And that is the point that you have to realize these things. When Dave was talking to you about the taxes, knowing the circumstances of what's real and what's not real. When he's bringing you this evidence to the light, file on him. Stand up for your claim. I mean, in my community, now they're trying to go after local people here again, and I have to go stand up and do some things. I don't have a problem with it. I'll even do things that people won't like. But see, it depends if you're an American or if you are a British bowed subject to the Bible. A man don't pray. A man defends his family. All right? When a man, it's like we get taught all this stuff by movies and TVs and fantasy of a Bible. And where are the men? How many men do you know that are not afraid to go out and stand for their family or for a battle? And the ones you know, look what's happened to them. Why? Oh, we have perfect examples. Like, let's go with the Bundys. But the Bundys are sitting there not filing claims, and I guess Ammon is finally starting to file some claims. But it's knowing how to do it. And this is the point where people don't realize it. They don't realize because of the financial gain. If that makes sense. It's all about gain. And that's where people don't comprehend the reality. It is about personal and financial gain. That is a frustrating point because people don't do nothing unless they get compensated, unless they're paid. I mean, how many times do you know people that says, oh, I won't do that job because I'm not paid? Happens daily, correct? How many people are willing to go help out a disabled or a neighbor without being paid? Very few. So these are the points. When he's bringing up the Fifth Amendment or the deal with the Fifth Circuit Court and this stuff, these things have been argued. They've been proven. They have been won. And these are the things that you need to bring to your table to those around you. If you don't bring it up to your table around you, how are you supposed to know what the reality is? Dave, you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I actually do. I want to make sure I was unmuted here. There are two falsehoods being told. One is that we the people agreed to give this corporation the right to borrow money using our good names, faith, and credit. No, we did not. Never did we do that. That corporation was formed by 3 individuals without the knowledge and consent of the American men and women of this republic. And so then, after the corporation got its foothold in the door, then they created, what was that? The certificate of live birth and the birth certificate. They created you as a commodity to buy, sell, and trade. Again, fraud by trickery. They didn't have the right to create you in any way, shape, or form. Your mom and dad created you. Okay?
That's a fact.
These test tube babies. What year was that they came up with that, in the 50s or 60s?
Well, actually, that's when they came public with it, but they were actually doing it back in the 1800s, late 1800s. 1888 was the first one they had that was an experimental, and it wasn't done realistically where they perfected it until World War I.
Okay, so in reality, didn't they start those test tube babies with the sperm of a man and the egg of a woman? The only thing they actually did during that entire time was figure out the way to feed the embryo so it would grow. Basically, that's all they've ever done. But they make it sound like, oh, this was such a big deal. We created life. Didn't create jack diddly. It's just one more lie you told to the general public.
But you watch TV, you believe this stuff because it says that on TV.
No. We're never taught to think outside the box. And that's what Americans had better start doing, is thinking outside the box if they're going to hold on to life. Because they have a guillotine in these FEMA camps that's ready to take your head off, buddy.
And that's a fact. Why do you think they got all these coffins there that nobody gets it? Type in Jesse Ventura. He's already brought it out on his talk show. Why do you think he bounces back from Mexico and the United States?
To get away from it all.
That's right. And people go, oh, well, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. Yes, he does. He knows the corporation game. Remember, he was in WWE or F, whatever you want to call it. He made an income off of it. When he brought the stuff out on his talk show that he was doing, even the Kennedy assassination and stuff, what do they call that? What is that called? HARP. HARP exists. Do you realize that 5 countries have their own HARP system? They control your weather. They control the radio waves. That's what you think and how you feel. That's a fact.
And let's not forget the microwave weaponry they have out. They can burn the skin right off your body with those things.
That's true. And they do this because of financial income. Because when you go with the state corporation. People don't get this point. People don't get the reality of it. All right? You sit there and go, oh, I need a job. Wait a minute. Until basically 50 years ago, majority of people didn't have a job. They went and hunt and fished, and they survived off of their land that they got inherited by their family. They didn't go out and beg for permission. They didn't go out and do different things for permission. They hunt and fish. They fed their families. Trust me, I did that in my own structure. You know, I hunted and fished, and I didn't sit there on the deal where I sat there. I mean, I fed kids elk and venison, salmon. You know, this is the point. They lived off of the land, and they didn't comprehend it. How are you supposed to comprehend it? Do you sit there and know the difference of real fish? Right now in Columbia, British Columbia, the salmon that's going up because of the farming and radiation we got in the ocean, they finally came out and said the salmon that you buy in a grocery store, if it's not basically wild out of the rivers, is poisoned. Tuna fish, when you get tuna fish in your can in the grocery store, it is radiated. So when you eat tuna fish, it's radiation. That's a fact, a known fact. It's not a myth. And that's where people have to realize to the point of knowing what the truth is compared to what they think the truth is. You know, I mean, you know, the one beauty about the things that Dave and I do, now he's going through another filing, I'm doing my stuff, and I can't get that. Once I do my filing, it'll be made public. But until the day we stand firm on these issues, for your bloodline. Remember, I don't have bloodline to the best of my knowledge. Mine were killed. I deal with that. But I'm not going to sit there and say, why should I give up? It's like everybody said to me at the Capitol, come on, Ed, you don't have this, you don't have that. Just take everybody for a ride and screw them like the attorneys do, lawyers do, judges do. Well, the thing is that I have compassion and I have a heart that was given to me. See, that is the thing. The root of all evil is money, not the love. We get confused on these issues because they want to change the words biblically in your Bible to convince you mentally of what they're thinking compared to what you know. Fair to say, Dave?
Don't you think the wording should be the lust of money is the root of all evil?
That's true. But see, the root of all evil is money, because remember, until realistically in the 1930s, all the way up till the 1940s, most people outside of the city limits didn't live on money. They lived on food resources called farming. They grew their food. They didn't have it delivered to them or go to the grocery store. If they didn't skin or deer and elk or cow or goat or whatever it was, they didn't eat. And this is the point that you need to comprehend the fact on these points.
Back in the 1940s, Ed, every farm, I don't care how big or small it was, had fruit trees, grew their own strawberries, grew their own peas and carrots and cauliflower and all that stuff, because we didn't have the grocery stores, the corporate chains.
Wait a minute, what year was that again?
In the clear back in 1940s, this was
right, and that's where people don't realize, because you and I are old enough. You're a little older than me by a couple of years.
Right.
But people don't get that point.
Few people realize that your backyard is probably big enough to grow a fruit tree or plant a small garden.
Grow food, can it. You don't have to be on the system.
That's right. And yet, very few people, because it's so convenient to go to the store and buy it, want to produce food and can it and preserve it for the winter time, which is what our founding fathers and grandparents had to do to survive the winter. They dug into the hillsides, storage places for food. Because there wasn't anything such as electricity.
Well, yeah, and that's the point people don't get. When it came to your food in the schools today, where you have the free lunch program, the breakfast program, that was actually started by the Black Panthers in 1968 in Oakland, California. All right, prior to that, the schools didn't have that structure. Locally, they used to grow the food on the school grounds, or people donated and brought it in from the ranchers and farmers around them, so they had food on their school grounds. Big difference, people. See, it's like child labor today. Everybody says, oh, children shouldn't work. And I've dealt with this where I've been around people that have sat there and goes, my child should not work and know all this stuff because they're too young. How do you think they know how to own a business? How do you think that they know how to survive? It came from those educational circumstances for us to know the difference. And that is the beauty of all this stuff.
In today's way of thinking, Ed, my father and mother ran a slave labor camp.
Yeah, today thinking, but back then, it wasn't a slave labor camp. It got you out to do something, and you got exercise.
Well, you got the privilege of eating at the table.
Oh, that's the other point. Yeah, it's nice to eat when you know it's grown. But people don't comprehend that fact. They think that, oh, my children shouldn't work. Oh, my children are poor kids, that they shouldn't be child laborers. Well, how about educating your kids so that way they have a trade? They know how to skin. They know how to make jewelry. They know how to, carpentry. They know how to do different things that, if it comes down to it, at least they have a roof over their head and they can feed themselves without the knowledge of sitting on the system going, food stamps, even though that food stamps technically is correctly an entitlement for lawful Americans, not immigration. 192, I think they call that Public Law 73.10.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have these things, and I've had people say, well, Ed, tell me this, if they have this, then they're not going to want to go out and work. Well, let me tell you something. When it comes down to it, kids and people are going to want to do something instead of sit down and not do nothing. Twiddling your thumbs, get nothing done. You know it. I know it. Everybody else knows it. Why can't we use common sense? By common sense, I'm not talking common law. Common law is British, not American. Knowing the difference between the structure, and that's where a lot of people get themselves in trouble with. They don't comprehend or know the knowledge. These are the things we go through, these points that without you knowing the difference, how are you to know the circumstances? Unless you know it. I mean, the one thing that Dave and I do when we do these filings, and if somebody else is listening tonight, she's done her filings and stuff, and is knowing the truth compared to the Immigration Act of Incorporation and Slavery. These are the things that without that, how do you have a future? Most people don't comprehend the future. Go ahead, May. Oh yeah, if there's people in the queue, absolutely open the board. Okay, and folks, if you want to speak,
Q&A session has started.
if you would like to speak up, say may or can I have the floor? Because we are not a democracy. We're adults, and let's be respectful and treat each other as an adult. Hey, good to hear from you. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I was just listening. I was enjoying the conversation.
You're talking like you're in a tunnel.
Hang on a second. Can you hear me better?
That's better. Thank you.
Cannot
I had
hear
about... Huh?
her. I
Can you
cannot
hear me?
you, Michelle.
You cannot hear me, or you can?
Cannot.
Oh, okay.
You're
Well,
coming good for us. For some reason, it's not going with him.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you.
All right. Well, you touched on some good pointers. One thing that I discovered when I was going over paperwork, and as to what David was reading and what he's addressing regarding the court, here's the proof. And that has to do with the IRS, of course. The Treasury of the state is the one who has control of the money, not the IRS. And when we file paperwork, or when they file paperwork, it has to be signed under penalty of perjury. Otherwise, you can claim that it's fraudulent because they didn't address an affidavit stating that what they're claiming in their paperwork is true. So if there's no declaration being signed under penalty of perjury, how can they go forward and make all these fraudulent claims just like they did with the foreclosures? Because there was no affidavit attached. There was no signatures attached pertaining to penalty of perjury under those declarations as to with the court. And the clerk of the court, that's another thing. The clerk of the court also has to prove through signatures and under declaration regarding the IRS pertaining to those fraudulent liens as to the debts that they were claiming. Much to learn, and just as what David was reading in his paperwork that he's getting, as to what he's addressing with the court and how he's contradicting their faults. I mean, it's amazing. You start looking up these codes and statutes under Title 28 of Title 18 under Section 2027, which has to do with the rules of procedure on evidence, and yet they're constituting and addressing securitization breaches. So they themselves have made many faults, and they have addressed many faults with the courts.
Well, comprehend this. None of the letters you ever get from the IRS state, I, under penalty of perjury.
That's right.
I come with clean hands.
Mm-hmm.
Under the Paperwork Reduction Act 3512, I'm not required to fill out this form.
Yeah. So
those are three basic fraudulent proofs that they are lying through their teeth.
Absolutely. And that's where you have them is on because even under the laws regarding the regulations pertaining to the IRS, and that states by the Secretary of the State, by the way, that they have anything that has to do with the IRS has to be signed under penalty of perjury under oath. So there you go. So there's your proof. That just shows you right there that they see there's many things that they didn't think about, that they didn't think that we would catch on as to our beautiful bar association, the British-run democracy
is a good point.
Yeah, I was going to say democracy, but I was going to use the other one, the Terrorism Act, going through terrorism. And, I mean, it's just amazing. And there was something else I wanted to touch on. I got to go back and look at my notes, so I'll let you talk. But there was something that it has to do with what you guys were talking about and what David's been addressing regarding the court. Something to do with the IRS and the banks.
Are you talking about the new decision that came from the 5th District Court?
No, it actually has to do with the, hang on a minute, Ed, no, it's something different. I gotta find it. I got so many pages.
I know how that one goes.
You know, profiteering from public office?
Yeah, you're in the right direction. In other words, it has to do with the Terrorism Act, but there's something that I discovered.
It's in land
it has to do with the United Nations. There you go. So, and the United Nations now, that has to do with the New World Order. No joke. Because you know why? It has to do with the banks. It has to do with the, and I wrote it down. I'm trying to think of the banks that they mentioned. There's two banks.
Holy See, International Monetary Fund, and the Pope.
Right. But they mentioned two banks that are involved, and that has to do with the New World Order.
Bank of Brussels, Belgium, the Vatican Bank.
Don't forget Switzerland.
Yeah, but that's not. It has to do with the Union. It has to do with the Union.
European Union?
Pardon?
Okay.
Yeah, it has to. In other words, It has to do with the New World Order, and that's why we have senators in Congress and those that are against the United States. Okay, it has to do with that. I got to go back and find it.
Well, that's like say when you try to get your senator or state representative, they want your zip code to see if they represent you. Well, do they represent you or the Constitution? And
right.
People don't comprehend this reality. When they do this, they don't care about the Constitution. They don't love you. They don't care about you. They want to rape you. They want to steal your children's assets.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless they do that, they don't have an income. That's a fact, people.
Well, and this, or what I'm talking about, Ed, too, it has to do with our senators and our governors.
I'm waiting for you to get that page up so you can bring it up.
I can't bring the page up. I don't have. It's in my instrument that I'm giving to the to the sheriff's department. But it's something that what I'll have to do is I'll have to scan the instrument that came to me. It was a letter that came to me, and that she was actually addressing the verbiage in her. And it dawned on me because it has to do with the treaties. Okay. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm trying to find it so I can read it to you. How she said it. Huh?
The Treaty 1213.
Yeah, it has to. In other words, why our senators and our governors are for the New World Order. It has to do with the United Nations. And the reason why is because the United Nations pertains to two banks. And I'll be darned, where did I put the verbiage?
And that's the point that people got to realize.
Which has to do with the union, the union of regarding the of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have people in Congress who are talking about and you've heard them use the verbiage New World Order. Well, the New World Order has to do with the United Nations.
Yeah, but who was the one that founded the United Nations? We go back to the structure with Bush Sr. back in, what was
Correct.
that, 1909.
Right.
And the United Nations today was founded by the British government in Nazi Germany.
Well, and guess what? It actually even goes farther back than that, Ed.
I know.
That's why they removed the 13th Amendment.
Well, they removed it, but it's still implied, and it's
yes.
factual. That's the point.
That is true. That is true. Unfortunately, that's where we have to start making demands to bring that back into law regarding the 13th Amendment.
Well, it is law, but it's bringing people to the awareness that it
Well, it needs to be put back. In other words,
imagination.
The 13th Amendment, the original 13th Amendment, needs to be put back in our handbooks as to the constitutional handbooks. They don't have that verbiage in there, and that's why they removed it. Again, that's another form of like what you were talking about, David and you. I mean, as to deceiving us and depriving us of our rights regarding their conspiracy act. Now that has to, as far as I'm concerned, that falls under terrorism, acts of terrorism.
Correct.
That's consorting with the enemy.
Yes.
An act of treason.
Absolutely. And if you're going to address an Article 3, Section 3 claim, you have to put the verbiage in there under acts of terrorism for it to apply. Now, doggone it, I actually added that poo-poo. I added that statement in my document, but I don't, or I should say my paperwork, but I don't remember what page I inserted that thing on. Hang on a minute. Let me go get my other document. It's something that I want you to hear. Hang on just a second.
All right, we'll let her catch up on things, but the one point here, folks, is that we got to realize if you're not putting your affidavit, and I was having a phone conversation this afternoon with several people on this, it goes back to the Foreign Administration Registration Act of 1938.
Okay.
Now, after John F. Kennedy, all right, because John F. Kennedy did not register with the Foreign Administration Registration Act because he was a lawful bloodline American. All right, learn the structure here. So when they went after John F. Kennedy and they couldn't beat him in court because the court decision clearly stated that an attorney has to represent the corporation of the charter. So that means your birth certificate, bond, and you are a charter of that circumstances. So if you're not filing your paperwork on that point of view to claim your rights, so when you go to court and if you get a public pretender, you give them the paperwork and go, here's my charter, you have to represent it. See, this is where people go to court, and I've had conversations the last 72 hours with people. And they go to court and they say, well, I put it in record when I went to court. And I said, well, did you have it in record before you went to court? Did you put it in exhibits and it was registered with the court before you went to court? Oh, no, I did that when I was in front of the judge. When you go in front of the judge, if it's not registered in the recorded record, that's called hearsay evidence. It's like a public pretender, a district attorney. If the district attorney does not have an affidavit represented by the actual injured man or woman or even child at that point, but a child cannot do it without the parent's authorization of autograph or signature, they can't bring it to court because it's hearsay. So that's the point, you know. It's frustrating that people go through this. When I argued with some people here in the last 72 hours on this, and they tell me, well, we brought it to court. We brought this in. And I'm like, did you file it before you got there? No, we could bring it to court, and this is the way it's supposed to work. And they said, you're living in fantasy because you're going in front of a religious court. Your courts are based by religion. That's why they keep talking about, oh, we got to go by Sharia law, or this, that, and the other thing. And if you actually take the Bible into court, and if you know how to do it correctly, and there's been men and women who have actually done it, who walked away with murder charges. Say, and I don't condone that. I mean, if you do something, if you harm somebody, you are to pay the price. Okay?
I'm back, Ed.
Go ahead.
Okay, the letter I got is called Eagle Forum, and what it is, it's an educational process as to for the people. In other words, it's a defense fund program that someone has put together as to going after our elites, those in Congress, for violating our rights. Because and it states like this: America's sovereignty and the independence are under attack like never before. Well, we sure do know that, and we can feel the effects. She states in the letter, and I'm sure if you Google this, you might be able to pull her up on the internet. But her name is Phyllis Schlafly, and that's SCHLAFLY, Schlafly. And she says, let's put Americans first, national declaration. Remember I was telling you that when I looked up where we stand as we the people, we fall under national, meaning natural, under law. And that's how they define us, separate from the corporate side as to the fiction side pertaining to the corporation as to who's in Congress. So she states in her, it's actually a 4-page document that she sent me, and I signed it because I agree with what she's claiming as to in other words, fighting for our rights, for the American people's rights, and not for these other foreign countries.
Mm-hmm.
Now she says here it is. She says, you see, all too many members of our country's elites don't believe in America. They believe in a new world order run by the United Nations, the World Bank, and the European Union. So and when I read that, I was like, oh my God, you know what? She's correct. And now I know why Obama, when he bailed out the banks, right? He bailed out the banks, and then what do? They address all these fraudulent foreclosures in the United States, of course. And that has to, and that's to control the people, right? Because after all, it's all about control.
Yep.
It's about weaken the United States, and the weaker we get, the worse it's going to be. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're destroying the United States, because let's face it, we have many elites that don't believe in America. Or, they're not for America. They're against the United States. And that's so. Every time you hear, so listen, and how many times have we listened to our senators and those in Congress, our governors, talking about, the New World Order, just like you said, Ed, Bush. Bush was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that talks about the New World Order, hey, guess what? They're not for the United States, and they sure in the hell ain't for you.
I think Bush's famous speech was Bush, the former CIA director, was the one that says, we're not going to have the rule of the jungle. We're going to have the rule of man, and that's what Nazism was based on. You want the rule of the jungle because if you're not able to defend your home and your land,
right,
you have to ask permission. Wake up, people.
Well, and when I was looking under Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 101, which is Section 7071, which has to do with concealment, removal, or mutilation generally, which is A. I mean, when you start looking up these codes, and then you start applying it to the rules and regulations as to what's already in place, and there again, all these fraudulent foreclosures were brought into court, and they weren't even brought into court under the original documentation. They were brought into court under what? Oh yeah, copies. Remember, what did the banks do? they destroyed all the original notes, did they not? Yeah, they destroyed them. Okay, well, guess what? That's a violation in the laws pertaining to the laws in the books. You're not supposed to destroy any document pertaining to any department or court of record or any agency holding a record, a public record. They're not supposed to destroy those records. Oh, well, geez, let's see. There you go. There's your fault. There's your fraud right there. So they violated the civil rules of procedure under 1.150, which stands for fraud or a scam or a sham, because the words that they use would be a sham or a sham pleading in reference to the court. So they violated Rule 1, Rule 60, Rule 59, Rule 38. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And then, of course, Rule 4, that has to do with attorney's misconduct, and Rule 38 has to do with the judicial conduct pertaining to the court. So you can't tell me that that's not an act of terrorism. Sure it is. So, and then you go into the IRS bullshit, and I'm reading the laws and the statutes pertaining to the IRS, and it says right in there that they can't file any claims unless it's verified. Well, guess what? Guess who does the verification on that bullshit? Oh, the state, Secretary of the State verifies that stuff. And she's the one who has to make the claim. Oh, yeah, let's talk about our debt. So, okay, so if they're going to go after every homeowner pertaining to their debt, oh, geez, who holds the note? Remember, the banks are claiming that they're the holders of the notes. They have no standing. They don't own your note, and they don't own your property. But that's exactly what they did. So, yep, there's your answers to how they're committing perjury in court, under oath yet at that, and forgery, fabricating court documents. Whoops, I hear some status in the back.
Yeah, that's me. I was going to say, if I may, we do have another in Q&A.
What's that?
Question and answer. We have another caller waiting to talk.
Sure.
I'm just saying. Try to wrap it up, please.
Well, she can go ahead, or whoever it is, they can go ahead.
Hi, my name's Ronald, and I'm calling on behalf of a friend of mine who has taken out a reverse mortgage on a 60-acre parcel of land that's got a horse farm on it. They, of course, discharged the taxes for this parcel of property for about 8 years, I guess. The property taxes on the parcel are about 5 years, or about $6,000 a year, $6,000 something a year, and they, of course, took care of the taxes on it. And now, on the 12th of June, they want to put her into foreclosure on this reversed mortgage for the unpaid taxes.
What state was that done by?
That was done in Oregon, out of Yamhill County.
Okay, yeah. They cannot do that in Oregon, because when Don Lindley and the state of Oregon passed reverse mortgages back in 1999, they cannot do that until the man or woman is dead.
Okay, well, they're claiming, though, that...
I know what they're claiming, all right? Do you have my number?
Yes, I have your number.
Okay. But see, the bottom line comes, they cannot do that. You need to file on them for violation of contract. And does she have the actual contract on the reverse mortgage that the the individual filed on with that contract originally, let's say 5 or 6, 10 years ago, whatever. Do they actually have a copy of the original structure?
I've asked her to get together her contracts that she's got with whomever it was, signed her up with the reverse mortgage. So I haven't seen anything yet, but I've told her and asked her that she needs to get that stuff together.
Right. She needs to get that together. She has standing on that because in reverse mortgages, they cannot do that until the individual is physically dead.
Whether it's the taxes or whether it's the
whatever,
payback.
Because they signed a contract until they died.
Okay.
Does that make logical sense?
And from what the lady, Patty, was that Patty from Florida that was just talking?
No, that was Michelle in Florida.
Michelle in Florida, yeah. From what she was saying and what I gather from out taking any time to research it, is there really no difference in a mortgage versus a reverse mortgage?
Yes,
Same difference?
Big difference.
Big difference?
Big difference. Because, see, you're not owning your land, you're leasing your land back to the system until you die. So you're asking them for permission for paying the bill. See, if she didn't do a reverse mortgage and if she would have filed under that, and I have Representative Greenlick on record in the state of Oregon, House and Senate public hearings, where property taxes are voluntary. I live in Oregon. Trust me, I'm fighting this right now. I'm still on my land. I don't deal with the system on that one. And I've got a recall filed on Kate Brown herself for racketeering, fraud, and extortion and treason.
Well, if I recall correctly, though, I did hear you say here a while back that, yes, you hadn't given them any sort of rents for a tax on your land for some 20-plus years, and now they're coming at you after 3 years of they're talking to you about you owe 3 years worth of back taxes.
I never said that.
Oh, okay. You didn't say ever that they're now all of a sudden, after all these years of not giving them a rent for a tax?
Oh, no. I'm still dealing with them, and we're getting ready to go to federal court on it.
Right, but have you not received a tax bill at all in 20 years for the land?
No. The point is that what I'm saying to you is knowing what the administrative rules are compared to what the law is. See, property taxes in 1990, I was on the public hearing in Lincoln County in the state of Oregon in 1990 when they started incorporating outside of the city limits to go on property taxes. Prior to that, if you were outside the city limit, there were no property taxes.
Okay.
Go ahead, producer. Okay, *6, Michelle. But anyhow, bottom line comes down to is knowing the circumstances. Okay, now I filed identity theft with the state and the Trade Commission. Do you know what identity theft is?
Well, I may not know it by your interpretation, and I may be wrong on my own.
No, but give me your interpretation so that way we...
Oh, okay. My interpretation of identity theft is that all-cap name, the legal fiction.
All right. Identity theft comes down to, let's say if you don't use the capitalization name, all right, and somebody uses your information or gives a state agency your information, that's identity theft. You didn't authorize it. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay? So I didn't authorize the stuff that has transpired and the things that have gone on around me on these things. Okay? Other people did this by their own record. So by their own record, I'm going back and stating this fact. And I've even got it even on... Are you familiar with our website, new.oregontrackers.com?
No, I'm not. I'm writing it down now. If you repeat it slowly, I'll write it down.
it's new, N-E-W, .OregonTrackers.com. And you can go read my filing that is actually filed in the House and Senate. It's been publicized in the newspapers in the state of Oregon.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I?
Go ahead, Michelle. Throw your thought
Yeah.
in before I finish my thought here.
Sure. I just wanted to add, because first of all, just like Ed was telling you, when you file a reverse remortgage, just like Ed was telling you, what you're doing is you're giving your property back to the estate. Now, they can't take that property until the owner passes away, and that's what Ed is talking about. What I would recommend you to do is to call the Secretary of the State, who has a record of any filings pertaining to liens, so you can get copies of whatever it is that you're asking for that the owner is not evidently giving you as to what you're asking for. So I would call the Secretary of the State regarding contracts pertaining to liens, and also in reference to bankruptcy. Now, you can also call the bankruptcy court.
Well, before you get to that, Michelle, our representative for the Secretary of State is Dennis Richardson. You know that, don't you?
Yes. Oh, is this gentleman from Oregon?
Yeah, that's why I want to nail him on a few things on the point.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's okay. That's good, Ed. Okay.
Familiar that Dennis Richardson is the Secretary of State now, right?
Yes.
Yes. Only from this conversation.
Right. You know Dennis Richardson used to be a lawyer.
I'm not surprised.
You know, and I actually have the copy of his resignation from the Oregon State Bar when he resigned as an attorney. And do you have my information?
Yes.
Send me an email. I will send it to you so you actually get his resignation letter of what, why, and how.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to court tomorrow, and I don't know if I'll be locked up or not. So will you give me your email, because I'll have this lady who's got the problem.
Okay. Now, what do you borrow for?
Probation violation.
All right. Probation violation on something administratively, or did you actually cause property or personal damage?
It's all administrative.
Okay. Did you ever file against it?
I did not. Not in the manner I think you're referring to. Did I sign a complaint against them? Did I attack them? No. In the offensive? No.
Okay.
What I've got in there now, I just put a new document into that. I put a mandatory judicial notice, new evidence. I've got the original 1859 oath out of Washington D.C. Constitution. And I got the printouts from the Secretary of State. I couldn't find the state of Oregon registered, and I couldn't find the all cap name and four different rhymes. And so I threw in, they appointed. This has been ongoing since November of 2015. And here in February, March, April, between February and in April they appointed an attorney. So they appointed a court-appointed attorney for the defendant, and I've been trying to get him off the case. And I just put in another affidavit to him today, had it served, and got that in the record. So there's 40 months suspended sentence hanging on it. It's for possession and sales of weed, and it's been ongoing. And anyway, I got to go to court tomorrow.
Is this one that I know then?
Pardon me?
I know you, don't I?
Yes, you know me, Ed.
Okay.
You know of me. We've never broke bread together, but you know of me.
Yeah, no, we've had conversations through other people too as well, because you know other people I know on the emails then.
Yeah, well, I started learning this stuff waking up about the time that Pamela Gasson was reaching the pinnacle of her knowledge within the
right, okay, and I know all that. Well, you know I'm the minister with all that involved, don't you?
Yeah, you've shared that before. I've heard you talk about it on the call.
Okay, so, Ron, I'm sorry that you're going through that point, and it's trying to get things done, so, it's so frustrating, because the thing is that in the other defense that you have tomorrow, In the state of Oregon, isn't it legal?
Well, of course.
Right, but wait a minute. By state law and federal law, you cannot be charged by something illegally, and it's supposed to be erased off your record by even Oregon State Supreme Court.
Oh, really? The marijuana and sales?
That's the whole point, because remember, it is a misdemeanor.
Well, I know. They charge it as a felony, though.
No, but it's a misdemeanor. They can charge what they want to do, but so long as you accept it.
What did they charge you under federal?
No, it was state, and I didn't accept it. But of course, they got it written down as I accepted it. But hey,
or you can make them prove that,
USC?
Well, I've already had the trial. I've been on probation for more than 2 years. They put the case on a bench probation more than a year ago, and then I picked up another charge to interfere with peace officer business, and that dogged me for 14 months.
Wait. Oregon State law says, in the federal Supreme Court of Oregon State law says that you cannot interfere with a police officer because a police officer is a lying son of a bitch, and that's what the Oregon State Supreme Court even stated on record.
Yeah, well, they finally, Multnomah County, they subsided, and they dismissed their case after 14 months, 20 proceedings, 18 of them which I made, and they finally dismissed. But then in the meantime, presiding judge out of Clackamas County, Robert D. Herndon, he jammed me up they did this all in-house because I was never cited for it, never got notice from DMV, and I let the license expire in 2000, but as a result of the conviction in 2014 for weed, they put in a contract behind my back, the attorneys did, to have the license suspended, so that put it in a suspension status, and then I was out there traveling and getting a bunch of violations for driving while suspended, though I was discharging them, and yada, yada, yada.
You were discharging them.
So the only thing they got for this violation of probation is a conviction for driving while revoked, which I was never cited for. And that's what's been going on. And so I've been sharpening my pencil and trying to learn a few things and doing this and doing that. And now I'm down to tomorrow. I just put in some documents today. Like I said, I put a mandatory judicial notice, put in two, and an affidavit, 2 mandatory judicial notices. One is a mandatory judicial notice / affidavit. And then I put in, new evidence. One showing that there's no state of Oregon license within the state. There's no state of Oregon in the state of Oregon license to do any business with the Secretary of State, and there's no Strasser Ronald Kenneth or Ronald Kenneth Strasser or Ronald K. or various similitudes registered with the Secretary of State. So my paperwork says fake plaintiff, fake defendant, fake state, and it's all going in under new evidence, and then I got the mandatory judicial notice act of the state. I put in the an apostilled copy from D.C. of Oregon's original jurisdictional Constitution, 1859, and I'm asking the judge if he's going to hear the case in original jurisdiction, or if he's going to commit treason. And I got a certified copy of his oath that I put in there with it.
Okay, but see, did you go by the original contract of 1846 where the state of Oregon agreed to the contract with the British government that gave us our rights?
1846?
Yes, it's on my Facebook site and it's on my website.
Okay, well, I'm unfamiliar with that, Ed. I didn't go that far back. I just went to the original Constitution, the original one, 1859.
Well, 1846 structure when it was adopted in 1859.
Okay.
And that's actually on my website with the actual structure of all that.
Okay, well...
okay, and so, now you're going to tomorrow. If you send me an email with the circumstances, I might throw something into that court just for the sake of argument of having fun.
Well, Ed, nothing would tickle me more,
Well,
I'm having a hard time getting 3 witnesses there, so I can write up an affidavit for treason if he's gonna he's going to steamroll,
write up the affidavit that the state of Oregon even passed that hemp is legal. And if you go back to 1937 with the Marijuana Act stamp, right? That was applied that said that you had permission to grow marijuana, all right? Because when you got the Stamp Act of the permission, you asked for permission, you gave up your rights of personal medication. It's like, right now, I'm denied pain medication, okay? Do you comprehend what I mean?
I'm listening.
Okay, I have 5 discs in the spinal cord. I was just confirmed this morning that the other disc is going through my spinal cord and literally killing me. Okay, so I'm in extreme pain. Let me tell you, I know all about pain. I know this is reality, not a figment. But I know that people believe, like in Sister Teresa and all this fantasy of their religious political BS that they go through. They don't get it because people say, oh, well, you're supposed to suffer and you're supposed to have pain and you're supposed to feel like Jesus when he suffered. And it's like, it shows you the mentality of people who read the Bible compared to compassion. Because we're supposed to have compassion for one another. All right? When somebody steals something from you, if they don't make an amends, you have the right to kick their ass. Okay? That's the way I look at it. All right? Until, 1993 in Lincoln County, we didn't have a courthouse in Lincoln County until 1993, folks. Prior to that, they had, if you did something, if you drove without a license or anything, they had to take you to Salem. They weren't going to spend the money because they knew that you had a right to travel without a license. This is 1993.
Mm-hmm.
Not that long.
Didn't they have a court building in Tillamook, or not Tillamook, but Newport?
Yeah, we didn't have a court until 1993.
In Newport?
Yes.
Okay. They had a jail, though.
No, the jail was at the cities. The cities had basically a 2 or 4 man jail, the cities did. Toledo had one that had a 1 man cell. City of Newport had one that was 4 man. Lincoln City had that was 2 man. I know. I grew up around here for 30 years. I watched this stuff, been there. I've been in politics going back for 30 years in this county.
Hey, Ed.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Something I'm just thinking about what he's got to be doing tomorrow. Isn't there, and help me out, David, I think you might know what where I'm coming from. There's a word that has to do with when you're looking at paperwork or documentation as to instruments.
You bear propriety, holding the truth in contract law.
Yeah, but what's that? What do you call that?
Findings and facts, conclusions of law. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, and there's a term that has to do. It's an old term that has to do. In other words, they're addressing fraudulent claims pertaining to that paperwork. What's that called?
Disclosure.
You know, huh?
Disclosure.
Yeah, as to the disclosure, but when it in other words, doggone it, it has to do with an old saying. Dog Latin, there you go. You don't, as to addressing the paperwork, they're addressing Dog Latin.
Oh, I got you.
Pig Latin?
Pig Latin, yep, Pig Latin.
Pig Latin, yeah, go ahead, Ron.
No, that's fine. I started off just asking a question. I'd like for others to be able to ask their questions, but, one, I asked a question, what can this lady do? She's an older gal, retired school teacher, works real hard. She's fighting court cases up the wazoo. She's got a big, it's like, where do we start? I mean, I'm dating myself, but it feels good to be able to help somebody else. It takes me off my own crap, Well,
where I was going with that was with you. Tomorrow you're saying you got to go to court, so that would be your argument. You don't understand Pig Latin. Or Dog Latin, whichever one you want to use. And I think we cut David off. David was saying something, and I think we cut him off.
You're good, Michelle.
Oh, So I as to the contract and as to the paperwork that they're claiming against you, I would in other words, you do know what that means when we say pig Latin or dog Latin?
Well, Latin is Latin, and it's just like the word court is a Latin word, cautio.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place where securities, bonds, and bailments. I learned that from retired Judge Dale's site.
I actually talked to Judge Dale too. I know who you're talking about.
The reason why I'm bringing that to your attention is because dog Latin or pig Latin means that they're saying one thing, but it means something else. So that's what the term means when you say dog Latin or pig Latin, and that could be your argumental point as to what the officer's claiming, but yet that's not what really happened.
Yes. Well, that's a really touchy base, and because from what I get, if I do anything to talk there, it's got to be through, verbally, it's got to be through a negative affirmative, because I don't want to, I don't want to traverse, stipulate, or argue, and just by me showing up, I can say special appearance, threat, dress, and coercion, be an armist, and it works because it gets me another proceeding, but I'm trying to shut them down, and I was successful with the help of a couple others to shut them down in this same sort of process.
Right, but
in Multnomah, but Yamhill County, they just figure I'm their bond servant, and they don't give a hoot, and they've just been very arrogant. They've been as arrogant as they could be, and I finally got hold of a big bond, a performance bond, and a payment bond. I've got it in possession. I've got an affidavit of surety, and that's where I froze up, because of the affidavit of surety. It says I, me, and it puts me in that language, and it's all for the defendant, the straw man, but they could so easily just say that I agreed to be a surety by these documents. I'm reading them. I like them. They make sense. They're clear and concise. But then this affidavit of surety that has to go along with it, that's a dangerous document. And then, the abatement letter goes in, and they can lock up the defendant, but let me go free. Well, they don't let me go free. They treat me as a defendant, and the defendant, because the defendant, you can't lock the defendant up. That doesn't get them their public showing, of what we do to those that are dissident.
Hey, you're missing a valid point here. It's going in and presenting. Okay, presenting the evidence on the circumstances. We realize that what they've got you for is bogus. All right, you comprehend that reality.
Yes, and if I may interject to something you've just said, because that is enlightening what you've just said, and I've only been enlightened here recently through all the years and everything I'm doing and learning and have learned. You know what? There's no evidence. Like right now, I've got evidence. I've got the copy of a Constitution, and I've got documents from Secretary of State. That's evidence. And what you just said.
You filed it and have it recorded into evidence.
Well, bringing in evidence or having something recorded. Okay, let's say, record something for evidence. I mean, like a document.
That's right.
A document.
Tell it with the secretary or the clerk of the court. Put it in exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you walk in court, you go, well, Judge, I have this, that, and the other thing. That's called hearsay witnesses. You have nothing filed in the court to back you up. I've said this before. You don't have nothing in evidence of exhibits to back your statement up. You're going in with hearsay. When you talk to a judge, it's hearsay evidence. That's like a prosecutor, a public pretender. Hearsay evidence.
I'm shaking my head in agreement with you. Yes.
File it so it becomes factual and it becomes evidence in your defense. Otherwise, your defense has nothing.
Make sure
agree.
when you go to court. Make sure when you go to court tomorrow that you enter with the clerk of the court as evidence.
I've done that today. I got it all. I noted my evidence as article of evidence. A, B, C, D, and E.
From the court, have a stamped document from the court today on that instrument.
Well, what I'm doing tomorrow, I'm going in order tomorrow, Ed. I'm going in order tomorrow and having everything I put in today come back out certified.
Oh, that's good.
You didn't hear what I said. When you turned it into evidence today in the court, did you ask the lady for a copy with the stamp on it from the court that says, the court received this, now you have a copy in your hand with the stamp that says, I have a copy of evidence that was turned in?
I do that. What I have in that regard is my proof of service.
No, you didn't comprehend what I said. You went in and you turned evidence into the court, correct? Is that what you said earlier?
Yes, that's what I did.
Did you actually ask the receptionist to get a copy with the stamp from her that when she stamped it, now when you walk into court, you have a copy of that evidence and you're going to the judge, I have to make sure this entered into evidence with your clerk before we could talk.
And that's what I'll be doing tomorrow morning. I'll be going back and get a certified copy.
All right.
Okay.
All right. But
good.
If you would have done that originally, all right.
Hold it, Ed. I agree with what you've said. I was on a first-name basis with her. I said, Donna, you want to go ahead and stamp all my documents, or you just want to give me a certified copy? I go, I can be in tomorrow morning. And she goes, you just come in tomorrow morning and get your certified copy. I don't want to put the stamp on all his documents. So what I have for a receipt for my cargo right now is it's a proof of service, a certificate of service, and I got the district attorney. I served him first. I got his stamp and signature from one of his clerks on it, and then I took it over to Donna, and then she checked off my bill of lading, make sure all the documents were there, and then she gave me I asked her for 2 copies of my proof of service and certificate of service. So I have that as my receipt for the goods right now. And then tomorrow, I'm going to go in first thing in the morning and give me a certified copy of everything I put in. Now, here's something that I think I've learned about evidence. Also, all the affidavits of defaults, all the administrative judicial notices, with all the courts of authority that have been in the past, none of that is evidence, as you said. None of that is evidence. But reading the rules of evidence, if I get all of that paper exemplified, now I've got evidence.
Mm-hmm. That's what Ed's trying to explain to you. That by you getting certified, just like you said, and you have it stamped by the clerk of the court, that she had received that documentation as to what you're talking about and what Ed is talking about. That's your proof. Yes. Otherwise, like Ed is saying, if you don't get that and you don't have the stamp on there, then it's, like Ed is saying, the judge can come back and say, well, that's all hearsay.
That's right. I agree. And thank you. Yes. And just for everybody that's listening out here, look up the word exemplified and check that out. Technically, they're saying that that's the only evidence that once it's and exemplified, that's the presiding judge, that's the trial court administrator, and the head of records. That's 3 signatures. 3 signatures.
That would be correct. So make sure you get that done tomorrow.
But they take a week to 2 weeks, and sometimes a month, depending on what you're doing with their case, to give you that exemplified document.
Do that to keep you in the system for their employment.
Yeah, that is true. They do it on purpose.
And then I would have had this exemplified copy 3 weeks ago, but then they jacked me up and said, okay, yeah, it's $10 to get the exemplified copy, but it's 25 cents a sheet.
Instead of listening, you got jacked up instead of listening. Because not all these people in the position are that much assholes. Trust me, there are a few good people in the system if you listen.
I try to listen, my friend.
Well, trust me, I don't listen 90% of the time, but the 10% I do, the reality clicks to me.
Okay, well, let me have your email for this lady that I want her to be able to email you, Ed.
All right, make sure you send it to me 3 times. It's Ed Johnston. Well, you have it. You're part of the group that we email to each other.
I know that, but I'm out here on the street, man. I'm going to spend the night at somebody else's house. They don't even have internet.
Gotcha. I know your situation. It's lowercase EDJOHNSTON 2003 @ yahoo.com.
Okay, let me repeat that. Ed Johnston, JOHNSTON 2003 @ yahoo.com.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
All
but
right.
to me, she's in Yamhill County, and Kathy George, to my knowledge, is still the county commissioner there.
Yeah, I'm not certain. I don't think so. In fact, I'm sure that she's not. She's done.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's Gary's wife, and she finally well, we won't go there, but that's respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I haven't been up there in a few years. It's one of those things.
Okay, Ed, now, I'll have this lady email you tonight, and if you think there's something you want to send me back, I don't have to, my appearance is until 2:30, so, but I'm going in there about 9:30 to get my certified copy, because I want to be prepared. I may be able to stop by this lady's house, whom I made this call for tonight, and check the email. If you're gonna, whatever you said is, you got some mind to do something in regards to this case, CR110286?
About because of state and federal law. Because remember, the state of Oregon passed that you're allowed to grow 4 plants on your property, no matter what. Correct?
Yeah, well, they pushed me for sales for consideration.
Consideration of what? See, that's the point that people don't ask the major point of what.
Hey, Ed, I took that through the trial. I challenged it, and they, of course, ignored it because consideration means money.
The judge didn't sit there and be feared of his bond.
Say that again?
Apparently, you did not do that correctly because the judge was not afraid of his bond.
You're right. Does he actually have a bond other than the PLF fund?
Well, actually, their bond technically is their house, their jewelry, their assets, and their home.
Yeah, because I heard that there's no insurance company on the planet that will.
They're all self-insured. They're all self-insured.
That's right, and they're also a member of the Public Employees Retirement System.
Right.
The PLF fund, the Oregon State Bar, the whole group.
Oh, that's what we're dealing with right now in the state of Oregon, where Kate Brown is asking for more funding because they spent the money. They actually spent the money on their own personal parties and shit. And it's coming out now that they have ruined their retirement structure. That's why Kate Brown is asking for funding, like what Jerry Brown in California is doing. Oh, we got to bail out the Public Employees Union because they spent the money. And nobody.
Ed, I have a question. Ed, I have a question for you. Even in light of what you're aware of, and I'm not aware of much, but I heard a rumor that said that the Public Employees Retirement System has got about a $21 billion deficit. But
no, and it's $48 billion ahead.
It's $48 billion ahead, but aren't they saying they're $21 billion in the hole, in the red?
It's knowing where the money is. It's like tracking the money, and this is where they don't like it, because when I recalled the school board, they went after the funding. That's why they tried to murder me on it, because I had them, and I could prove they embezzled the money. I could prove somewhat where the money went to. And when I recalled the school board in 2002, that cost me my family, I recalled them for $30 million I could physically prove by their administration.
Okay, that $48 billion that you said they're ahead, is that in their coffers? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, it's part of the CAFR report, yes, that people don't get. We're not entitled to that. That's what I'm still fighting on.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought. I thought when I heard the rumor that they were $21 billion in the red, that that was a fraud, because I believe that the CAFR's account probably had 3 times that in it.
Put it this way: you pay water. I mean, for people who pay water bills in their community. All right. Now they take that money that goes into the water bills, they put it into a private corporation of the corporation. That goes to the bankers, where they claim that has borrowed money when they never borrowed money. So the bankers claim that asset, and that's where people don't get it.
Well, here's something else. Are you talking about we're talking about the so-called money? Couldn't we all, with the mortgage? I mean, for this lady, an example with the reverse mortgage, couldn't she write some kind of a letter to the Secretary of State or to the governor's office, to the governor, and ask him about Article 1, Section 10, and Article 11, Section 1, the fact that there is no money? So what are these people talking about?
Wait a minute, you're jumping first. First she has to read the contract which she signed. She has to go through the contract if she actually comprehended what it actually meant to her at the time. If she didn't comprehend that at the time that they were going to make her homeless and put her into, let's put it this way, an elderly environment, you know, disabled housing or something like that, if she didn't comprehend it, that's theft.
It's also identity theft.
No, Ron, you're missing a point here. She has to know what she did. She's an adult.
I got you. I got you. Hey, before my device dies, Michelle, can I give her your phone number? Because you'd be a great lady for her to be able to converse with.
Yeah, sure. Ed will give it to you. Ed will send it. I don't want to say it on the recording, so Ed will give you my phone number by email.
Okay.
Yeah, just send me an email quickly, Ron, tonight, and I'll give it back to you.
Okay. All right.
Hey,
and thank you. I'm glad you're all alive, and you're the bright stars in my life, and people like you.
Ron.
Yes.
Major point is that you're not the first one who made a dumb error. Okay.
We've all made dumb errors. Let me tell you, we've all are learning.
All right.
Well, I know. I just wish it had been a mistake, though, Ed, because I've been trying to correct that error. Boy, they're just. I don't think
but what year was they passed marijuana that was legal in the state of Oregon? How many years back?
Well, technically, the rule changed. It happened about the same summer that they busted me.
Time you got your ticket, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is you need to look at these point of view instead of get angry that you're being defensive on and saying, hey, isn't this a fact? What year did this become legal? And I can tell you personally, I remember in the 70s growing up in Oregon where people smoked dope on the streets. They smoked it in the zoo. They smoked it in the theater. They smoked it at any park. It was a natural thing until, I don't know, realistically, 1990s. That's when the drug war started coming into effect. Prior to that, everybody smoked dope on the streets of Portland, Oregon. Everybody smoked dope in the zoos. Everybody smoked...
Hey, but Ed, let me tell you something. In 1923, half of the federal prison population was in there for possession of some kind of controlled substance.
Yeah, but remember, that is administrative rules by the federal government, who's the British government. Nobody fought them right.
That's right. That's right. And there is... Hey, and guess what? All of that case stuff came out of a wheat grower that they took to Supreme Court to sign up, who signed up to grow wheat for the state. But unless you sign up through the regulatory scheme of administrative and statute rules...
Correct. So long as you stay out of the administrative rules of their structure, you have nothing to worry about.
Right, well, they're trying to get full due process. That's the tough part. Agree or disagree?
Disagree, because prior to that, because people didn't have an issue. I know people that grew it and done all this stuff who never had an issue. They didn't sell their soul to the other side of stuff. They stayed out of it. They kept their mouth shut. They knew better.
Yeah, I was going to make a point. I was going to make a point that is starting to get Jerry Springer.
Yeah, well, we got the argumentative, and that's cool. We could go back to Jerry Springer on that one. I'll give you that. Okay, but see, that's the point, is knowing compared to what we think. The problem is when we think compared to knowing the truth or knowing the facts, we think and we have emotions run us instead of logic. And men are supposed to have logical, women have emotions, and doesn't that get us both in trouble?
I agree with you, Ed. I agree with you.
Okay.
That's why I'm able to...
So that is the point. And we don't sit there and defend one another and making this stuff so people don't make stupid mistakes, that way they know it's responsible.
Hey, Ed.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I got a question. Have you ever heard of the term emergency growth company?
Oh, yes, I have.
Well, that has to do with the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers.
And that includes the food products of organic, yes.
Well, that's true, but it doesn't just apply to that. But you're right, and the reason why I brought that up is because of what you guys are talking about, and it also plays into the homes, or as to the transfers, as to the title or the deed on property.
Correct.
So that's why I brought it up, because the young gentleman, he's learning, and so he might want to look that up as to the Exchange Act under 7 U.S. 1A, which is Section 1A.
Well, and the
on the Commodity Exchange Act.
Yes, I agree with you on that one. But the other point people don't realize, Title 28, dealing with the drug wars and all this shit, it goes by possession, intent to sell. You are allowed to have medication on you for personal use. That's federal law.
Right, but I'm not just talking about that, Ed. I mean, but you're correct. I mean, what you're talking about. But I'm also applying that under the concept pertaining to these mortgages or our homes. Because those laws and statutes, believe it or not, fall under that category, but they don't have it listed under those categories.
Right.
Which is amazing, isn't it?
Well, they can't do that because attorneys couldn't make a living by rape, robbing, and pillaging if they did that.
Well, that would fall under trickery, which is Title 18-1001.
It is using the knowledge when you go to court or you're in a situation like that. If you don't know that, when people go in the position they go through, that's what brings them into the problems they have today.
Right. So also under Section 3 has to do with exempted securities.
Mm-hmm.
Or Section 4, which has to do with exempted transactions.
Right.
So when you call, we have to. In other words, she has to call the Secretary of the State of your state to get a copy of whatever has been filed. Maybe there wasn't anything filed to begin with, and they're taking them to the cleaners under false fabrication on an instrument, just like they did with me.
Fortunately, out here you don't have to actually block the truck.
Why is that?
I leave my bike out here for hours every day.
We're on the same page with that one. But see, the thing that comes down to it is knowledge. Instead of arguing about stupidity, we're supposed to take the knowledge and start speaking in rational, reasonable points of view. We're supposed to get over the stupidity part of all this crap. I was in a relationship once. I wish that the woman would have got that through her mind instead of the way she went. But that's here nor there, because the women think with what? Emotions before they think.
Yeah. The old bumper sticker.
I want a bumper sticker like that. No offense, Michelle, but you get my point, don't you?
Yeah, I do, of course.
We've talked about it, Michelle.
No, I'm not disputing it. I'm agreeing.
See, but the thing is that we argue about trivial crap instead of moving. All right? That's the whole point of all the circumstances. See, you're going back tomorrow that you should have had, and I've even sent you some emails on different other things, and I didn't see responses from them. You know, I know that several people in the group that were on that group email, people blocked me because they don't want to hear the truth because I don't believe in their Bible. You know what I'm referring to?
Yeah.
No, I'm talking to Ron.
Oh.
You're not in that email group.
Nope.
So what I'm saying is because I don't believe in the Bible bullshit that came from England, okay, because before our forefathers wrote the Constitution, they sat down with the natives here, and everybody goes, well, the foreigners came here, and that's our forefathers that came. But when they came here, the reason why they wrote the First Amendment of the Constitution, separation from religion. Could you imagine if we're supposed to go by the Roman Catholic Church, what that would do today? And everybody keeps going, oh, Nazism and Trump is a Nazi. Wake the hell up, people. The damn Bible's a Nazi. The whole structure of your religion is Nazism. And if you look at the Pope, he wears the Nazi cross on his robe. There's no difference. But the point is that we're not supposed to have that in our country. So I put out emails all the time to people that argue with me, and I tell people to send their Bible back to, what is that called, Dave? London, England, sewer and water. Send it back, send your Bible back to London, England, sewer and water. And people go, what do you mean by that? Well, London, England. Dave, you want to emphasize on sewer and water on that?
Is he there?
Dave, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
So tell people about sewer and water in downtown London.
Say that again.
Sewer and water, downtown London.
1C3.
Cool, we got a kid active. Yeah!
Comprehend that is that when your church became a 501c3, they turned over that organization to the Crown and the Pope.
Does that fall under the Treasury Declaration Order number 91?
I believe so.
Downtown London.
Which has to do with the foreign agents?
You got it.
That falls under False Claims Act because fraud by trickery, the attorney and the Congress both, forced you into a fraudulent jurisdiction in violation of the Constitution. Congress shall make no law.
Yeah, amazing.
I'm enjoying it. It's nice to hear a kid in the background.
Yeah.
I don't. Thank you, but it's nice to hear a kid because I'm not used to that in my life. I'll wait till the time when your son is going to give me an earful.
Preferably around 2 a.m. in the morning, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 30 minutes, yeah. No problem. Anybody else?
All participants are unmuted. Q&A session is over.
All right. Anybody else would like to speak up?
Good, how are you?
This is a cash card.
Oh, can you guys tell me what you're
What?
You assumed it was.
Didn't tell me. Usually.
Well, we got the kid in the background. Yeah, if nobody wants to speak, we'll go ahead. But see, the one valuable point here is that folks don't get the structure. It's not until we start getting over, I don't want to say an age, but we get older. We look at things a little different than what we thought we did.
That's true.
Go ahead.
I was just agreeing with you, Ed. That's true, because let's face it. When we were growing up, we used to sit back there and we used to criticize our parents, did we not? Like they didn't know what the hell they were talking about until after you got older, and then you realize, oh shit, were you wrong?
Well, I didn't quite criticize my parents. I just wanted to get the hell away from them. But go ahead. There was somebody else trying to speak. Go ahead, guy. Okay, apparently I'm wrong. No. Oh, you unmute him. I thought we had the floor open. Ron, up. I think that was Ron. But anyhow, see, the thing is that when we get older, we don't sit back and look at life. It's like I've had a couple females in my past life, or my past life. I'm not dead yet, and there ain't no past life. When you're dead, and that's it. But, I've gone through things, and I've looked at things where I've had a couple things where when I was younger, if, I don't know, is that because male egotistical attitude comes into place? Sometimes we don't listen to women.
Oh.
What was that?
I said no.
Sometimes, a lot of time, the women don't listen to the man.
Yeah, it works both ways.
Well, yeah, but doesn't a woman tell the man to have patience, and when the man has patience, she says, fuck that, excuse my language, duck that, and this is the way it's supposed to be, and then we're supposed to be Johnny on the spot? Yeah, okay, no disrespect, at the point. So, see, this is the point when you get older and you start realizing when you've had your head broken, you've been in a couple of incidents or these type of things, you realize that the pain ain't worth it. Or actually, it's worth it because at least if the woman took care of you in the morning when you woke up, you didn't have an issue. What a concept of that reality on both sides. Remember, it works both sides here, people. So, this is the beauty about life, that we forget about how to take care of one another. We get so wrapped up. I mean, it's like I was with a woman once that all of a sudden got a phone in her life, a cell phone. A cell phone, because now she was connected, mattered more than our relationship, because everybody was calling her over bullshit instead of anything that had any value. Mm-hmm. Even in the relationship of her, of whatever people called, there was no value in it. It was just to blow off steam that you paid for a phone.
True.
I mean, I went through a very strong point with a relationship where the woman took so much offense because I would not have a cell phone on me. And it's like, and she took it that way, that if I didn't have a cell phone, I'm have something to hide.
Why do they call them cell phones?
That's a good question.
Go ahead, speak up.
Oh, right. The reason why they call them cell phones is because the battery cell that is inside them. That's the way it's always been, and I yield with that answer.
So it has a battery operation. So in other words, you're not connected. You have a clone?
But it's not a phone either. It's a device. It's a device.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, when it really comes down to it, what do you need a cell phone for when you're with somebody that you need to talk to? And most of the time that somebody gets a phone call, 90% of the time, it's just for bullshit. See, that's why I don't have cell phones. That's why I have a landline. If people want to get hold of me, they get hold of me.
Well, then if you look at the language, DE means to take away, and vice. Vice is something that is a habit.
No, it does become a habit. It's another type of drug that somebody can say, or booze or alcoholic that people go, I'm addicted to. Addiction is a fantasy. You can get rid of the addiction if you want to, but most people don't want to because they rely on the, sympathy card for it. How many times have I heard from men and women, oh, I had to have a drink. Oh, I got drunk and I was stupid last night. I did this and you're supposed to forgive. I mean, even guys and women who've gone out and got drunk who cheated on their relationship go, oh, you should forgive me because the booze did it.
Hey, Ed.
Go ahead.
That device falls under the security future.
Security exchange. You forgot the exchange part.
Well, that too, under the security exchange, but the security future.
I know, but you forgot the exchange part. Without exchange, there's no money.
Oh, well, that's true. Well, no, there's money. They take it from us.
Actually, people who say you invite them out for dinner and they bring their cell phone along and they suddenly begin talking on the cell phone is because they think your conversation is boring.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, my God.
Or I've even been out with people that get a phone call because their kid's calling to see if they're okay or not, and it's like, what, if you have to ask your kid if you're okay, then what the hell are you doing with me to begin with, or dealing with the other party to begin with? If you had fear, why are you out?
Well, checking on your child doesn't mean that they have fear with the child. They don't trust the babysitter.
Well, that's true, too.
Well, a lot of things said, too, are just excuses to justify the lie.
Oh,
well,
that's
true, too.
See?
An excuse is just a reason to justify the lie.
Right, but you got to realize where did the excuse come for the lie?
Right.
What, the excuse comes before the lie? What? Yeah. That's right, because we're too afraid to be honest, to say how we feel.
I would say that's true, and then I would also say that there are people that are honest, but they suffer the consequence of it for being honest.
Well, and then hey, that's what happens. That's what happens in these administrative tribunals under Admiralty Maritime Marshal rule.
Yeah, but see, also too, that doesn't even go to court. That even becomes in a relationship where people do that stuff to one another.
That's right. That's right.
And that's the point, that people get talked into this psychological stuff. Well, you didn't prove this and you didn't prove that, or it's like when I was in a relationship once, and actually I was in a hearing, a congressional Oregon State public hearing. And I didn't return a call when I should have by the message I got.
Once I got there.
And she wouldn't believe when I told her the truth.
Back in the morning, get a certified copy. I got no evidence.
What was that, Ron?
Oh, please excuse me. I was chit-chatting with a man whose wiki up I'm in tonight for shelter and cover. I'm going to be sleeping on his miniature sofa, which is his son's bed. So his son's going to give up his bed. See, now his son just said, "Don't mention me." See, so it's like we're getting to this honesty thing.
Out of it! Get out of it! I got the floor. You got
anonymity. Everybody wants anonymity, but yet they'll talk about you behind your back. It's your fiction. I'm talking about your
behind back, and we appreciate that he's willing to sleep on the floor for the elder.
Pardon me?
We appreciate that he's willing to sleep on the floor for the elder.
Yeah.
All right, because those of us who've been that when we were younger, we used to sleep on the floor for somebody else who was elder.
Yeah, I get that now and again. I've got gray hair, and I'm older, and I got a bit of a limp to my walk. And one young man, and I'm a blue-eyed man, so one young man coming out of the courthouse, he looks at me and he says, "You're my grandpa." And I says, "Well, you got blue eyes, that could probably work."
Wait a minute, before you may. But see, Ron, you forgot to ask him, did I know your mom or not?
Yeah, well, my mind don't go there so quickly. I'm naive and gullible, and my mama did not have talk with me about the birds and the bees or anything else. I was raised, to just listen, but I enjoyed most of the old people that were around me. I never had a problem with them growing up, and I did learn to respect my elders.
Well, there were some that got a beat into them, and some were smart enough not to get their ass whipped.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, Ron. Hang on a minute. Go ahead, May. May, speak. What's an HOA? Homeowners Association?
Yes.
Yeah.
My question is...
I knew that?
Yeah, you did know that. And they sent me a letter putting 2 O's in my name, which means they never served me. Number 2, if they do serve me...
Do you want to talk about this offline so that way you can put a letter to them on it instead of going online trying to figure it out?
No, what if somebody else is having the same problem I am?
No, because I've already dealt with this with numerous people. So has Michelle with numerous people. We've been through this stuff.
All right. Well, then let me get down to my question.
Hear me out.
May I?
All right. Would you let me finish and then I'll give the floor back to you?
Sure.
Okay? Sometimes until you know the circumstances of everything, because a homeowners association is a private contracting corporation. They are not part of the city, county, or state. They're not part of we the people. All right? So there are different ways you can handle it legally, and I have to use that word in this circumstances, all right, that puts them in check. So if you're going to respond back to it, you want to put it in a legal response. Now, if you put it in a legal response, once you do your legal response, we can make sure that that is publicized without the reference in it, but the generalization is up there for somebody else who can use it.
All right. Well,
does that make sense where I'm going with this?
Yes, and it's kind of fuzzy. I'm just going to put it like that.
I appreciate the fuzziness, but we've been through this before.
Right. But anyway, me being a lawful bloodline American and they being an HOA, what's the difference? What's the jurisdiction? How can they enforce it?
Have you ever read what the Homeowners Association of 1968, the foundation, actually is?
No.
Okay. Michelle, do you know a friend of ours called Gloria?
Yeah, I do.
See, she refused to do certain things with the Homeowners Association because she decided that she knew better. Instead of reading what it was, studying the circumstances of what, why, and how, she responded, and then what was the reaction that she got? How many times did we go back and forth the phone calls on this?
Oh, my God, I lost track, Ed.
Okay? So what I'm trying to allude to you, my friend, is sometimes there is a point that you want to speak out, and sometimes it's better to handle it and bring it to the public when you have a structure to speak instead of a theory. Because I don't want to go through something that might bring out something that you don't know that might embarrass you because of your speaking. Type in 1968 and Homeowners Association Group. And I'll get it to you, and I'll walk you through how some of this stuff works, and I'll even show you I wrote an affidavit for Gloria on this situation. So did Michelle. And Gloria didn't want to do anything. She did it her way, and that's why she ended up in the deeper problems she ended up in.
Yeah,
She called me and Michelle going, you guys, and we're going like, did you read it? No.
I will say...
No, I knew better. Well, I'm a homeowners association member. This is what the rule says. I said, did you read the foundation? Michelle even said to her, did you read the foundation? Oh, this is what the rules are. I said, I didn't ask you what the rules are. I asked you what the foundation was.
Right.
You know?
What you have to do is you have to look in your handbook that they gave you as to the corporation of your community. See what the rules and the regulations fall under as to whatever it is that you're disputing.
Not only that, you have to go to the county and ask them what they actually filed under the homeowners association to get the actual paperwork.
That also. And that's how you, and of course that's how you apply whatever the dispute is that is going on. And of course, as you would know, they have to prove their claims, so that's all part of it.
Right, and the other, do it correctly, you don't want to be public about it, because if you guys come to a mutual agreement, they walk around you. You don't want to get public because all of a sudden you're invisible and you want to stay invisible where you're at.
Well, and sometimes too, you can dispute it. I mean, you can address the dispute and come to a situation where you can actually close it and you don't have to go to court.
A reasonable understanding. But go ahead, Meg. Go ahead.
Oh, one of those situations, huh? Hey, your dog poo-pooed on my yard. I don't consent.
Maggie. I don't care. It's raining right now. We'll just go to fertilizer.
Oh, my God. Well, if that's all they have to complain about, then, honey, I have to tell you, you're going to win the case because, I mean, that's just unreal.
Actually, as you know, the circumstances, even comes down to it's fertilizer.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's natural fertilizer. What can I say, Judge?
You know, I have fun with people, and I've got this on YouTube video, where a cop is putting down a warrant for this lady that was issued by a judge, not a grand jury. And he bows, and this is on YouTube video, he bows in front of her and says, if you don't pick up this warrant, I'm going to get you for littering. And they said, no, you can't get her for littering. Number one is I witnessed you bowing down to her. See, he bowed down to her to serve it on the ground.
Well, here's what I would do if I was in his shoes.
Michelle, go ahead. Wait, go ahead. Go ahead. All right, but see, a health hazard, if you dig a little hole and you put it underneath the ground, it's not a health hazard, it's fertilizer.
Well, I would definitely, now see, under those circumstances, because I have done that myself, I have addressed some doozy letters, and I told them that I was going to take them into court, and if they wanted to waste my time on their BS bullshit excuses or claims, that I'd be glad to waste their money to take them into court. Now, naturally, depending on how you address your letter, 9 times out of 10 they won't do anything, because after all, when you write your letter, you're going to let them know that they're going to pay for your fees and costs if you have to take them into court.
Not only that, Michelle, where I was getting on this here is like when the cop sat there and put this warrant down, and that's on YouTube video too. Okay, and I said to the cop, I said, well, wait a minute, you bent down and you put that down, so you littered. I witnessed you littering, but technically and legally, I could throw a banana, I could throw waste products, that means even shit out of a car window.
Exactly.
Literally shit. That is not littering because it's biodegradable, and if you actually read the biodegradable law of 1937, it follows right into the law.
Well, here's what I would do if I was in his shoes. I would tell them, I would inform them nicely, because you talk nicely to them.
You put it in writing.
That you're going to go out and buy some cow manure, and you're going to spread it all over your yard because after all, you want nice green grass. Now, if they want to complain about dog shit smell or the dog's poop,
yeah, but
I hope they enjoy the smell of the...
Michelle.
Like where you live right now, you got sunny weather. It stinks.
Michelle.
Now, if it's done in the winter time for fertilizer, they can't argue.
Michelle.
Yep. What? I'm listening.
Get pig shit.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Oh,
Use the word pig shit. Hey, there you go. I'm going to go buy some pig shit, and I'm going to spread it all over my lawn, because it is that time of the year now where, that's the time you would put your fertilizer down.
Oh, you get that in your weather, yeah, so long as you host.
Isn't it getting close to that time for you guys where you're at?
Oh, it's
we're in
past time here.
Yeah, we're in May already.
I know, and it's raining right now today where I'm at.
Oh, that's even better. See, you got the rain. That's what you want. You want the rain to wet the what'd you call it? Pig shit?
Fertilizer.
Yeah. I live in a gated community too. I wrote some doozy letters, and let me tell you, after I wrote my doozy letters, they left me alone.
See, I'm blessed because I got 20-something years ago, I had an opportunity to buy a brand new truck or buy land.
Well, I'll tell you, I've considering me being in a gated community, I've actually been blessed to buy it. You have your downsides and you have your ups.
Yeah.
You really do. But when people want to complain about dog poop, I'm like, get over it.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
What have you done that's allowed you to, and I'll use the word, be successful to have the finances or the Federal Reserve debt notes to live in a gated community? I thought you were one that had your house or your home stolen from you.
Oh, I did. I did. I actually had 2 homes.
Oh, so you kind of born with a silver spoon, or you worked hard, you married right?
No, I worked hard, sweetheart. I worked hard for my 2 homes, and unfortunately, even though it was a paid-off home, I lost it due to fraud. Of course, I'm getting it back, so that's good news, because I finally fought hard enough that they're
going to give you the house back.
Yeah, I'm going. Believe it or not, I actually scared the Attorney General so much as to all the evidence that I threw at them that they are now going forward with a criminal act. So I'm going to be putting them in jail.
Very good.
They're going forward with a criminal act. They're in a particular county there in Florida. They're doing this.
Identity theft.
Is doing this.
Yeah, I claimed identity theft. It's going to be in Lake County, Florida.
Ron, this is the one point that like some of the emails that I sent in the group where some of the guys in the group would tell me, oh, Ed, you're out here and we don't get this. And you know what I'm talking about. You've read some of those comments.
Well, yeah, I read, Ed, and I even copied them down. But, I don't get the time yet because I'm just inundated, man. And like Saturday, I took, I took from 6 a.m. in the morning till about 2 o'clock, 12 noon, 2 o'clock, something like that, to just relax, bathe, feed myself, do some reading and some thought.
No,
you know what it's like to be alive, man. Time goes by so quickly. It's so valuable and so precious. And I think, I don't know who agrees with me or who might not disagree with me, but for me personally, life is beautiful. It's just exhilarating, and it's exciting, and it's electric, and it's just everything that and I've had a pretty tough go of life, and it just comes from one, my upbringing, and 2, the knowledge that I acquired, and 3, I've made a lot of errors, and you can't correct an error, but
errors, you're learning not to do it again, because the main point is actually if people would actually read the law, it's lawful, not legal.
That's right. I've learned that too. But we live in a society that's, well, hey, I got to watch a movie last night, Atlas Shrugged, Part 2, Who's John Galt? And for anybody who's seen that, that's the realm that we're in.
All right, let me put it this way. Have you watched a movie called Interstate 60?
No. Airspace 60?
This movie, Interstate 60.
Airspace?
Movie Interstate 60, it's going to open your eyes to a different point of view. Interstate 60 is the name.
Interstate. Well, hey, I've also read a book called Coming of Age in America. Now, I read that book for the first time in 2006 from an inmate management unit they call an isolation cell at Ontario Snake River Prison, whereby I was on my first 23-day fast. I had plenty of fasts, but never had I gone that long. And some people, that's half of what a lot of people do. But anyway, I was on my first 23-day fast. I went full 23 days with no food, just water. Had a dictionary. The research into this book was just over 500 pages, soft back, Coming of Age in America. The research was done by 12 psychologists, authored by 3 of them. And I actually found my very own life, my very own experience on the pages of that book. And I felt really good after reading the book, because no longer did I take the burdens from the Oregon Bar Association and its administrative units upon myself for all the things that I had gone through to that point. Having the finger pointed at me, you, Mr. Strasser, you. And, half my life spent in their dungeons. Well, I got more than 20 years locked up in and out of their dungeons, okay, for all administrative stuff, no injured party, no damaged property, okay? And that book showed me why I had a dream once to go to Notre Dame when it was an all-boys school. And then that dream went by the wayside. Then I go, well, God, maybe I can get to Oregon City, Clackamas Community College for 2 years. Well, that dream went by. And then I go, well, God, man, I just want to be able to graduate and play some sports.
Yeah, I was going to Portland Community and Law Enforcement.
And that dream went by, and Ronald ends up getting his GED in the Polk County, Dallas Town Jail. And that building is closed now, and you know about that building. It looks like an old obelisk. It looks like a big cock up in the air. And they had their dungeon on the top floor, and I sat 30 days in the hole for driving while revoked. They gave me 30 days. And in that hole, with a hole in the center of the floor where I dropped my fecal matter through, I got my GED. And I learned from reading the book, Coming of Age in America, why all that happened for me. And thousands more just like me. They have and I can't be exact with the details from that book, but like I said, that book lifted a burden from my shoulders and from my life and from my mind, because I finally then, because of that book, realized that it had nothing to do, all the times and years and stuff that I spent in prisons had nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the all-cap name and the system's way of calling its herd.
Yes.
They only have so many slots in their corporate realm, and they only want certain type of minds. And they don't want a mind like mine out there. So they knew more about me than I knew about myself. And they still know more about me than I know about myself, because they've got the psychology of years of psychology and psychiatry behind them.
Well, he's got a good point there, Ed. He's touching on some good pointers there.
Oh.
That is true.
And so what I know from reading that book today, that somebody on this call, children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren, are numbered for the prison industrial complex. When I started going to their dungeons, they of course had a prison in every county. They called them county jails. Okay, and then they only had 2 so-called prisons in the state. Now they got 25 prisons in the state, and they've enlarged their county so-called dungeons, jails, but they're actually prisons. You know, they're 10 times larger than they were in the 50s. And so the prison industrial complex is growing, and it's going to continue to grow, and it's going to use your children to get there. I just had a guard. He works the cop detail for the Yamhill County Circuit Court building. His name is Tim. He's 10 years older than me. He went to Vietnam. His son right now is in the Oregon Youth Authority in Bend, Oregon. And guess what? No injured party, no damaged property. His first scrap, his first ever being in trouble, you know, and when I say trouble, that means with the established, with the enforcement agencies, and he's locked up, you know, So I told him the best thing he can do for himself and that boy is let him read Coming of Age in America. He needs to read it too, so they understand why the boy's actually there, because it has nothing to do with what the boy did, and has nothing to do with what that old man in the uniform thinks he knows about what's going on. It has nothing to do with that.
Hey, Ron, are you familiar with the No Strikes, You're Out in the state of Oregon where they do this on children, where Measure 11 was passed?
No, I am not. Oh, I'm not. Here's what I am familiar with, though, with the juvenile system. Is that they don't let me, when I go to courts, I like to go sit in these court buildings. I like to sit in on the proceedings. I like to go especially to the juvenile system.
The whole thing on the juvenile system is bullshit.
Hold on. I just muted him because it was starting to get argumentative. And like I said, I'm going to block anybody who does that.
I know. I'm not arguing with you. Well, yeah, that's true. We are about that point, and I got to agree with you.
Hey, is it unlocked?
Huh?
Is your house unlocked, Julian? Okay.
Dave, why don't you do your final closing? I'll do mine, and this way we can end tonight. So the floor is yours, Dave, and go ahead, Dave.
Okay.
All participants are muted.
My suggestion, if you ever get a letter from the IRS, demand that their letter be under penalty of perjury. Send it back to them. Say, I refuse to accept this letter. Only under penalty of perjury that you are telling the truth. And in a form of an affidavit. And if you don't wish to do that, don't bother contacting me ever again. And with that, I will say good night.
Good night, my friend. I would like to thank everybody that joined us, the conversation tonight. We enjoy looking forward to you guys joining us next Monday. We'll continue our education outside of the conversation like we do every week. And may the Great Spirit and Mother Earth bless you, because remember, without the Great Spirit or Mother Earth, there is no life. You can live in fantasy all you want, but without man and woman, there's no life. I don't want to hear the gay issue, because if you're gay or lesbian, hey, that's your right. That gives you a constitutional right to be gay or lesbian. But write a contract between you two and leave the rest of the world out of your decision and arguments. It's that simple, you know. It's called respect. You want respect? Respect the other people that don't that disagree with you, but have respect for the party that you're claiming that you are. Without that, you have no future. All right? Because not everything is supposed to be religious. That is the main point. People do not comprehend the structure. You know, it's not a religious argument we are supposed to be doing. The First Amendment gives you rights of your own belief, your own religion, and leave the rest of us out of the conversation. And I can say that. I grew up in San Francisco in Haight-Ashbury days. I knew it. I witnessed it. A lot of other things. And so with that, may the Great Spirit bless you and whoever you are with your party. And just make sure that if there's no injured party, no property damage, no corpus delicti, there's no harm. And may the Great Spirit bless you and those around you. Without honesty and the faith of yourself, there's no future, and especially without real bloodline. Without real bloodline, there is no future. So may the Great Spirit bless you. So with that, I'm closing, and we'll let the other guys, if they have an insight, to say something. And if not, we're done for tonight. And join us next week, and travel safely. And like I said, the Great Spirit and Mother Earth bless you.
This is Toasted with Revolution News and Information. It is currently 8:04 Pacific Time on 5/15/2017. Revolution News and Information is out.